We hit 100, so we'll start. So we'll call the meeting of Falmouth Public Schools to order, and we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So as with the last couple meetings, all the school committee members are here at Falmouth High School, and everyone else is accessing the meeting using the Zoom link that's on the agenda. And the meeting is also being streamed live on channel 14, and then will be available on our YouTube page, all following Governor Baker's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting laws. And so I remind anyone that if they want to make an audio or video recording of the session of the meeting, to notify me as chair, and I'll inform the public as required by the open meeting law. Do we have anyone who's going to be recording? If so, it's going to be
Four.
four.
Two might be missing.
They had their hands raised.
Yeah, they were already raised. Okay. Okay. If that changes, please let me know. So we'll start with public comment. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes per individual to items not on the meeting agenda, and there's no debate or action taken on public comment items, but the committee will take the items under advisement. I'm going to guess that some of our hands up may be for public comment. Anyone else who wishes to make a public statement, feel free to just raise your hand using the hand raise button, and we'll take everybody. I think they're actually alphabetical, so we'll start with Mr. BC. Do we have a way to?
Yeah, can I just make two things? We need to read our mission statement, and I just want to make note that I will keep
Oh, please do.
timer.
Do you mind doing both, actually?
I don't.
That'd be great. Thanks.
So I just want to start with the Falmouth Public Schools mission. The Falmouth Public Schools creates a world-class student learning experiences. Our Clippers are empowered to pursue their goals with curiosity, integrity, and resiliency. Falmouth Public Schools vision: Clippers are creative, inquisitive, and engaged learners who participate in their community as socially responsible citizens. Clippers effectively communicate and solve problems that impact the world around them. I also just want to make note that I will be keeping our 2-minute timer for folks who would like to participate in public comment. Sure.
Mr. DC, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Great, thanks. Go ahead.
Oh, let me put my camera on. No, I guess not. All right.
I'll let you. I think it's just microphone.
Okay. Yes, my name is Jim DC. I am here as the Vice President of the Falmouth Educators Association and as a history teacher at Falmouth High School. And I'm here to talk about Schoology, which is our learning management system for grades 7 to 12. I want to start off with a couple of data points. A survey of Falmouth High School teachers, 82% of them answered the question, Schoology is easy to use as disagree or strongly disagree. Answered the question, improve my teaching, 58%, strongly disagree or disagree. Survey of students, 67% of 63 students, 67% said it's hard to find their work, 58% hard to use, 81% would prefer to use Google Classroom. Our members are frustrated, overwhelmed, and angry. This system is not doing what we were told it was going to do. It does not interface with Google Drive, which is my electronic filing cabinet with 8 years worth of work in it. We have to have multiple workarounds. Apps that we were trained on don't work. I have 4 courses, yet I have 12 sections of those courses in Google Classroom. in Schoology. I cannot use the discussion feature in Schoology. It doesn't work perfectly in Google Classroom. Linking grades, that's almost a joke at the school. It's a nightmare for anybody to try to do in Google Classroom. I'm sorry, yeah, I keep just wanting to have Google Classroom. In Schoology, the student will have an 82.1. In PowerSchool, when it's linked, he'll have an 83.7. What's the workaround? Shut the grades off in Schoology so the students can't see them. That just goes to show you what kind of program it is if it can't even calculate a grade properly. Student issues, students with executive functioning issues are all SPED students, complete nightmare for these kids. It's hard for them to find anything in this system. Any student looking for current or past work, their assignments, they can't find them. It's just incomplete. I can't say a nightmare enough times. In
And Mr. Dacey, I'm
conclusion,
just gonna let you know that we've already hit 2 minutes. So if
okay,
you
I got
wouldn't mind
one,
just-
two more sentences. In
Okay, thanks.
conclusion, administration looks at these issues as growing pains. In reality, this is a program that is riddled with broken promises, bugs without fixes, and it's leaving in its wake burnt out teachers and students who are not getting the educational experience they deserve. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Dacey.
Thank you.
Next up, I'm glad I actually logged in because I can't see it that far. Next, we have Ms. Davis.
Hello.
Hi, thanks. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Hello, and thank you for having me. My name is Lilia Davis, and I am a 4th grade teacher at Mullen Hall, as well as a parent of a Mullen Hall 2nd grader. Tonight, I am honored to speak on behalf of the Falmouth Public Schools 3rd and 4th grade teachers. I'd like to start off by thanking you for hiring teaching assistants for each grade level at each school. Another hand will be a help, and it is a step in the right direction. However, we are still in need of much more support. As a parent of a child who requires accommodations to help her self-regulate and work on her executive functioning skills, I am relieved that she is not in 3rd or 4th grade this year. We are asking students to learn in an environment that frustrates them and hinders their growth. As 3rd and 4th grade teachers, we are being asked to work 2 jobs without sufficient time to plan in environments we know are absolutely not conducive to learning. As a result, our students are suffering. Unlike our colleagues in grades K through 2, we have to make sure all of our lessons and activities are accessible digitally. This makes things like science activities that require non-digital materials very difficult to plan and manage. It also means we have to make sure every worksheet, every manipulative, every sticky note, every book we read aloud available in digital form. This takes an extremely long time to plan for. We are currently teaching more subjects with less and inadequate planning time. We didn't know that what our teaching conditions were going to be like when we voted against remote Wednesdays. We thought getting kids back in school was most important, but the way it worked out is that now grades 5 through 12 plan for fewer subjects and have every half-day Wednesdays to plan. I know personally I'm spending at least 35 hours planning at home each week since before the first week of school. We are being asked to work either in split classrooms, which requires at least half the class to be on Zoom for any whole class lesson, making it nearly impossible to create a class culture. Every lesson and activity feels disconnected and cumbersome. Some of us,
I'll
myself.
let you know that we already hit 2 minutes. So if you wouldn't mind wrapping it up.
Yeah. All right. Some of us, myself included, are being asked to work in a gym where the only thing we have to block out the sound is curtains for over 80 people. It's impossible to hear unless we're plugged into Zoom. The environment is distracting and irritating. The bottom line is that our 3rd and 4th grade teachers are happy to be back with kids. We love our students and have been happy to see them back in the building, but right now we're running on empty. We are putting in extreme amounts of time and effort, neglecting our families and our personal health to produce a watered down, poor quality education. We deserve better. But most importantly, our students deserve better. We can get creative with the COVID regulated world, but we need remote teachers for 3rd and 4th grade. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Lori. Lori Andre, can you hear us? Lori, I see you're logged in twice, so can you make sure that you're unmuted on the, maybe, there we go. Try that. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Go
Okay,
ahead.
it just, the host was waiting, so if you could please start the timer from when I start to talk, that would be.
Okay, yeah.
Of course, Lori. I'm not
Thank
jipping
you.
anyone on time.
Thank you. I'm Lori Andrade, Assistant Principal and Special Education Building Administrator at East Falmouth Elementary School. I am here to speak to you tonight as the proud president of Falmouth Educators Association, or FEA. A few months ago, I was invited to present at a school committee meeting so the school committee could hear directly from FEA. In lieu of an invitation, I'm using public comment time so the FEA can be heard from directly. Many members feel compelled to speak tonight, so in an attempt to not be repetitive, I will speak about a topic that only I can represent the membership on publicly. Currently, and regrettably, FEA has been left with no other option but to file charges with the Department of Labor Relations for failure to bargain in good faith and refusal to bargain over mandatory subjects of bargaining. It is more than unfortunate that our last productive meeting was around September 24th when we countered the school committee's September 26th proposal. The prolonged delays the school committee offers between meetings are unacceptable, and their unwillingness to counter our latest proposal of October 12th have put them in the position they find themselves. FEA's latest proposal, which we designed as a comprehensive bundle package, could have ended 2 step 3 filed grievances and prevented 2 more potential grievances that were filed today, as well as completing the MOA we have been working tirelessly on since July. Teachers want to be better teachers and advocate for what's in the best interest of students and families. It is obvious they are just dealing with things themselves, and they question the representation FEA leadership is charged with providing as the sole bargaining agent for the units. The school committee has asked Superintendent Durr about surveying FEA. She has promised to. She has about ADA accommodation requests and signing off to indicate members received health and safety training on the protocols. We have not been asked the questions I believe were in the spirit of what the school committee intended, which I understood to be how they feel and think about what they're actually doing, what the strengths and weaknesses are of the formats they're teaching in, and when it is safe enough. When is it safe enough? I remember that question. Not one of the surveys has touched upon that. It begs the question, why not? Thank
Just so
you.
you know, we've hit 2 minutes.
I think she was through.
Thank you. Next we have Ms. Raver.
Hi, yes, this is Lori Raber. I am the North Falmouth Director for FEA. And both I and Stephanie Vicchino, that works at North Falmouth, talked with many of the staff members there. And we're going to kind of go through, she's going to speak later about what we received back. Their work is above and beyond. It's about 40 to 50 hours over their contract hours, many hours over the weekends, nights, and so forth. And then all teachers want to be with their students. They're happy to be back, but certain professionals, OT, PT, reading specialists, and many TAs, teachers, and other staff members are feeling that there's been an effort to reduce the risk for other people in the building with no effort to reduce the risk to certain professionals. There's limited exposure to avoid crossing cohorts, but related service providers are required to see students from all cohorts all over the building every day. There is no time for evaluations, no time for paperwork or documentation. All evaluations require canceling time with students or using prep lunch. All IEP meetings require canceling with the students or are scheduled during prep or lunch. All paperwork is done outside of school time, working hours, or during lunch and prep time. Certain billing for Medicaid, progress reports, evaluation reports, IEPs, etc., is all done before or after school hours, and it takes many, many hours per week. There is no time for consultation that is on the IEP or co-planning during the day. This is all being done before school or after school, or it is just being plain missed opportunity. There is no time for sanitizing between groups with certain professionals. They're relying on time with kids to spend They rely on time with kids to spend sanitizing and wiping down surfaces. Otherwise, it is not getting done. One person stated there's inadequate ventilation. There is no window space in her room, and it's a very small room where she sees students. Waiting on materials to be delivered for WB Mason, crayons and basic supplies. Kids are unable to share these things, and it is really difficult to plan engaging activities without some of these basic supplies. Schedule changes for specialists, kids switching back and forth between remote and in-person, an influx of new students making things very difficult to schedule without consistency. The staggering arrival and dismissal cuts into the day for specialists and for making time with the students. And so it's difficult to see students on a regular basis.
And so we have hit 2 minutes, so if you wouldn't mind wrapping up, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All IEPs and goals are being written as if COVID isn't an issue, yet there are so many COVID-related hindrances to student progress. In addition to not being able to group students who would benefit from working in a group, the inability to share materials, the requirement of the 6 feet apart makes therapy a significant challenge. And there are no mask breaks for related service providers, difficult to be walking around the building quickly with a mask on, with the one-way arrows not being not also being late to service your students. So again, I just want to state that they're all trying to do their best, work hard, but there are just a lot of issues that are hindering that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're actually going to go to Ms. Draper, and I'll ask that whoever is Smile, if you can please rename yourself so we can promote you, so that we can hear you next. That would be great. So let's go to Ms. Draper.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're all set. Thanks.
My name is Tara Draper, and I am the library technology teacher at East Falmouth Elementary School. This is my 8th year working in the Falmouth Public Schools, and I absolutely love my job and love all the opportunities that I have been able to participate in and create with all of my students. As a specialist in my building, I have the unique opportunity to teach all of my students in kindergarten through 4th grade every school year. One of the aspects I love so much about this is that I am able to forge relationships that span multiple years with each and every one of my students. However, this also puts me more susceptible to sicknesses, etc., that students may bring into school. Over the summer, the administration met with my building team for during a discussional meeting where we had some concerns that were expressed to them about the safety of both students and staff. One of these concerns was how specialists see all of our students, and ultimately, in this time of COVID, can quickly become super spreaders. To alleviate this issue and also to consider the health and well-being of both students and staff, the schedules were decided that we would only be seeing 1, maybe 2 grade levels at a time for a specific number of weeks during the school year. While this posed challenges to our teaching that we were unfamiliar with and had to work through, we accepted this decision, knowing that it would be for the best benefit of the health and safety of everyone. Unfortunately, this decision has now been changed by the administration, and every specialist in all the elementary schools will be seeing multiple classes from multiple grade levels on every single given day of the school week. Inevitably, we are going to become super spreaders of this disease. And because of this, not only are we risking our health and the health of others and our families, we're risking the health of every single student in our buildings we will be seeing with and interacting with. Additionally, the expectations being placed on me with the number of classes I will be expected to teach on a cart makes it physically impossible to do my job at school. Unless I take a significant amount of time out of my personal life on a daily basis to try and meet the expectations being placed upon the elementary school teachers, I'm afraid that I will not be able to succeed at my job and provide a meaningful and engaging lessons for students who are learning both remotely and also in person. I urge you to reconsider this decision and to follow the examples of how the schedule has been created for students in grades 5 through 12. Please consider providing 1 remote afternoon a week or even 2 times a month to the elementary schools, as this would allow us to keep our schedules the same and provide planning time for teachers, yet still keep our students and staff safe and healthy from spreading COVID to others in our building and ultimately in the community of Falmouth. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to guess that whoever's time is can't figure out how to change their name. So,
I think it's Stephanie Miles.
okay. So let's go ahead and promote it. If you can just be sure to tell us who you are. Oh, I think you unmuted and then muted yourself.
Okay, sorry.
There we
Can
go.
you hear me?
There we go. Got it.
I'm sorry. This is Stephanie Vicchino. Thank you for having me. I'm going to continue talking on behalf of the staff at North Falmouth, please. And can I start my 2 minutes now?
Yep, go for it. Thanks.
Okay, so this is the feedback received from staff across North Falmouth. I am doing 2 jobs in one, classroom teacher and special ed with IEPs. I put in as much time and work into creating my online learning as I do with my in-class students. This statement is set across all grade levels and for specialists. Between weekly uploads of my landing pages, playlists, and Google Classroom, my weekends basically do not exist anymore, and my family does not get to spend time with me because of this huge workload. While the district did give us time to begin to learn about Edpuzzle, Pear Deck, Kami, Google Classroom, Schoology, Google Forms, and Google Docs, to name a few, application and continued application is necessary in order for these tools to become easier to use. That means tons and tons of hours for practice time. Teachers love to plan and be ready for their classes. Schedules change continually and are causing stress. How is asynchronous learning going to work now that grades K through 2 are not allowed to bring home their Chromebooks? Walking around on a cart as my classroom is a massive challenge. 5 minutes between classes and having to traipse down the hall from one class to another within that time frame is challenging enough. Never mind then having to sign into the class I am visiting for contact tracing, as well as cleaning my equipment each time I enter any room. I do not have time to take care of my own needs. That is going to the bathroom, washing my own hands because of it. And I'm tired of not having the time to take care of myself in order to take care of others. People do not feel that they are being heard by anyone at this point. Our school new norm seems even to be out of administration and out of FEA's hands. I don't think anyone cares at this point. Many staff sadly have continued to say the sad statement. Downtrodden is a statement that 3 staff people used about our wonderful staff walking around downtrodden, trying to rise above. Another staff member, I'm having a hard time throughout the day wearing a mask. It makes it very hard to breathe, and the continual breathing in of carbon dioxide does not feel healthy for students or staff. I am doing the best I can, said another, and more. I can't find time or energy to continue to try to email FEA about my job concerns, and I don't even have the energy to take on another job to calculate extra hours I'm continually doing. Feedback from 2 parents who have students in our school. I do not feel comfortable sharing as I'm not sure it will matter. Work doesn't end Monday through Friday. Staff continues into the late hours of the night, every night, and for hours before school in order to make learning work this year and on weekends. The workload is overwhelming. One positive connection is the emails between parents and staff. Whereas this is very time consuming, it is well worth the efforts in order to establish safe, continuous, helpful family connections. However, it should be pointed out that emails occur all day long.
And so you know you're over 2 minutes. So if you could wrap it up, that'd be great.
Okay, I'm trying. For specialists, this does not involve one class or cohort. This means an entire grade level plus one more class from a different grade level of families. Traveling staff is highly challenged to find a workspace. For example, our tech person who travels has a staff member in the library that she uses there and had no space for herself and had to try to find another one. Health risks for students and staff when staff traveling between buildings in the same day are not equitable conditions for those traveling staff members. We have worked so hard to acclimate to our new schedule of not only traveling as specialists, but to deliver our lessons, but also to teach one grade level at a time and seeing each class every day. This was a dramatic change in every way from our previous way of best practices with teaching. Another staff, I am doing 3 jobs, pull-out groups, classroom teacher, and finalizing IEPs, which is a secretarial piece. I am still working at 12 p.m. at night, and I'm responsible for emails, evaluations, and meetings on students in order to help them succeed. I also have 1 remote student and have to meet IEP minutes as if that student was here in school with me. A stipend would be so nice. I am concerned about IEPs being met. Are we getting another teacher or not? I cannot take any more on right now. I want to do well for my students. I'm very, very tired. Finally, I guess, and I still had 2, and I feel badly because there were other people that wrote to me, but you're telling me my time is up. Everyone at North Falmouth is dedicated to the students and to each other. We're especially tired and wanting to do a good job and really feeling challenged to do so. Thank you very much.
Ms. Torches?
Sorry, I had to unmute.
We can hear you. You're all set.
Good. All right, good evening. Thank you. I was going to yield my time to Stephanie, but I'm sure I'll be done quicker and then maybe give her my extra time. I just want to give you some words that my building gave me as the building director. They gave me as far as their mental health of themselves and the students. They feel alone, abandoned, disconnected, isolated, and unsupported by the very people that sit in that room. They feel exhausted. Weekends, they go home and they spend a good 40, 50, 60 hours working on their plans and their playlists that they have to provide weekly. Over the summer, we had to take Modern Teacher, the course for Modern Teacher. And then others had to take it very quickly at the beginning of the year. It's a lot. Ms. Miles named off several other tools, the Ed Puzzles, the Cami, all of the other things that we had to learn very, very quickly. And now we have foundations that we're tying in here. So it's been a lot. There's not a day that one of the teachers, staff members aren't upset, visually upset and emotionally, crying in our building. And I just don't know. I mean, I love my job, but thank you.
Thank you. Ms. West?
Was Tracy also representing North Falmouth?
No, Tracy's from East.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
We can, go ahead, thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm a retired teacher from East Falmouth, and I would like to allocate my time to Lori Andrade, please.
No, we don't do that, I'm sorry. You're welcome to share your comments with us, but we don't share time. It's not like Congress, unfortunately, sorry.
That's very unfortunate because I think that people who have been able to research this and get opinions from a variety of people should be heard more than, the teachers that are working in the building. So that's very unfortunate. I will say that my heart goes out to these teachers at all of the schools in Falmouth. East Falmouth is, of course, the school that I've, are concerned most about. They are working so hard, and I just feel like they don't have the support that they need from the administration. I feel like they are in this alone for so many reasons, and I just, if I could give my time to those teachers, I would really appreciate it. I hope you're thinking of them. I hope you understand that they care about these kids. They love these kids. They want to do the best that they can, and they are trying so hard. And I'm hoping so much that you will appreciate what they're doing and give them the little things that they ask for. I mean, they're not asking for the moon. They're asking for some common planning time. They're asking to get together with their other teachers so they can do the best. And it's so important. So I'm hoping that you will listen to them, and I'm hoping you will understand what they're saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone moved, sorry. Ms. Wilcox?
Hi, are we not able to yield our time? Is that what?
No, we don't do that, I'm sorry.
Oh, it was my understanding that was part of Robert's Rules of Order, but I am a related service provider at East Falmouth Elementary School. And I appreciated what Mrs. Raber had to say about the special circumstances that we're in. I work with 31 students across 13 different classrooms. So I am personally every day being exposed to many cohorts of students, many more than my colleagues, which I feel is not an equitable risk. I am not alone in this. All of the related service providers are in the same position. We have been provided with PPE, but I would have to say that it's very difficult to manage using all the PPE and actually doing therapy with my students. I have to, and I was told to use part of their therapy time, so we end a few minutes early so they can put their things away and wash their desks and get back to class before I have to start my next group. So we're working in their the cleaning in between during their speech time, which I don't believe is really okay, but that's what I was told to do to make it work. There are lots of issues with students being virtual as well as in person and trying to make that work. Because when I have a mask on and somebody in the classroom with me has a mask on, the person who's virtual cannot hear us. So I cannot combine virtual and in-person students as I was hoping to make the schedule work. And with the staggered arrival and dismissal times, we're losing therapy time. So it makes it even harder to see all the students, like I said, across 13 classrooms in a regular school week. So there's a lot of.
You're part of the timer, so that's 2 minutes. So if you wouldn't mind finishing, that'd be wonderful.
Yes, no, I appreciate your time. As I had said, I hope to yield my time, but those are the concerns that I have for related service providers. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, so public comment doesn't fall within our regular meeting, which is why it doesn't follow those Roberts rules. Our operating meeting does follow that, would follow that if we ever have time limits, which we don't institute. But because public comment isn't even required for open meeting of the school committee, it's a sort of an extra session that we have always honored as part of our meeting. And that's why it doesn't fall under Roberts rules, just to clarify for people who are listening. I don't see any other hand raised, so I just want to say, again, thank you to all of our teachers who took time to come tonight and share their thoughts and comments with us, and for the public to understand the magnitude of the task that they are undertaking and all the complications of doing so, and that we appreciate, you taking time and going above and beyond. Other than that, we don't usually respond, but I think it would be, we have one more. Ms. Mazur? I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on. I think that's what it says.
Yes.
Thanks. She's on mute. Oh, you're on mute. There you go. And we can't hear you.
We should be able to.
If you want to, I don't know. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. So why don't we go to, I think it says Ms. Freeman, and we can try and see if we can hear you after her.
Hello.
There we
My
go.
name is Nicole Freeman. I teach at T-Ticket Elementary.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Sorry, I'm trying to make sure the technology is working. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So I didn't prepare any comments, but I just feel the need to share T-Ticket's perspective. We are working an unbelievable amount. So just to echo what everybody else has said, speaking for me personally, I feel like an air traffic controller all day long, trying to manage students and teach them new safety protocols while trying to ensure my remote learners have access to learning opportunities remains an issue. I'm multitasking all day long and feel so split, not being able to give my full attention to anything that I'm doing throughout the day. It all revolves around time. I'm spending a great deal of time curating, creating, and preparing lessons suitable for learning plans that we learned how to do. And I spent all summer doing professional development through Modern Teacher, but also spending my own time developing and learning new things to prepare for this COVID environment that we are teaching in. I'm trying to figure out these learning plans that allow all students equal access to the curriculum in all subject areas. The time needed far exceeds that of any other year in my 20+ years in education. The time needed to set up, troubleshoot, and support technology remains an issue. I cannot effectively hear remote learners, and my remote learners cannot hear my in-person students, taking away from any collaborative discussions that promotes learning. There's no time in my schedule to provide necessary support, guidance, and effective instruction for my remote learners who require support outside of live Zoom sessions. I do appreciate that you have allowed us an opportunity to have a teacher assistant or a staff assistant for the grades 3 and 4. But I'm really hoping that you are in support of finding another way to allow us the time that we need to prepare effective instruction and meet the needs of all of our learners. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go back to Ms. Messer and see if we can hear you this time. I'm not sure why, I'm sorry, but if you have a comment that you'd like to share with us, you're welcome to email the school committee or me directly, K. Welch at Falmouth K12.ma.us. And I'll share it with the group. Sorry about that we can't hear you. So as I was saying, thank you to all of our teachers for taking time, and then in general, we don't respond. But I think it would be remiss to not at least acknowledge the wildly inappropriate way that we were just informed that we're being sued for unfair labor practices. And it would be remiss to let the public think that in some way this committee is not fulfilling our part of the bargain by sitting at the table and working toward that end. I don't know if you don't happen to have any, Andrew, you don't happen to have any meeting dates. I know you were working on preparing the number of times that we've met.
I don't have the total added up yet,
Okay.
but it's been significant.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the
That's
spot,
okay.
but we have met at least weekly, and our committee has met usually twice per week, working through all of the issues for the MOA. And I just don't want to leave the public thinking that it is somehow our negligence that has caused us to be where we are. And with that, we're going to move on. So can we promote Scott McGann? Is he with us?
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Scott. Yes, thanks for joining us.
All right. I'm going to share screen because I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. You guys see it yet?
It looks like it's coming. Yep. There we
Okay.
go. Yep.
All right. So where are we? Our case count is 296. So we're going to soon be at some point at 300. If you remember at the beginning, Governor Baker said there'd be between 48,000 and 175,000 cases, which for us would mean somewhere between 250 and 800. So as the state is approaching, at some point 175, they're closer to 175. We're not closer to 800. So that just tells us a little bit that we've done better than the state has. If you look at where we're at, I've got it circled from about June, if you can't read it all the way through last week. This data comes out now on Thursdays, just in case you used to look on Wednesdays for the state updates. It's now on Thursdays. There's going to be some more layers, especially involving where the clusters are coming from. So there's some more charts and graphs and things for you, I think, maybe starting this Thursday. You can see we're still in that less than 10, which is good, with the exception of the lifeguard and the nursing home in 1 week back in July. We had a 5 and a 4. Which is good. I mean, that's a good week. But when you come over to the state, you're going to see in this next chart here, a lot more red and yellow. The red and yellows are outnumbering the greens right now, at least on Eastern Massachusetts, and the grays. You can see the asterisks. Do everybody see the asterisks on there? That's a new feature.
No, our screen's really small. Can you tell us what that is?
Okay, so if you're a town that has an asterisk next to it, that's municipalities have either a long-term care facility or some congregate, such as maybe a higher education, a university. If you're Amherst, you've got UMass Amherst and Amherst College there, right? So you're going to have a lot of congregate living. Or a correction facility. This actually came from Middleton, where they had a correction facility that put them at an infection rate, the highest I'd ever seen, of 108 per 100,000, and that's what happened. So they're going to put an asterisk there. It would if it's either more than 10 confirmed cases in the last 14 days, or the cases make up more than 30% of the total cases for that municipality in the last 14 days. So, for example, for us, it would be long-term care. So if we had a hit at long-term care, hope that never happens. It's the worst place to get it, obviously. That would trigger us. Let's say we were yellow or red with an asterisk. That would tell us that we need to have a discussion on, what phase and where we should be with the schools based on what that particular thing. So if it's a closed congregate care, you would consider that different from community spread. But it's a little naive to think that with the Cape, if you see the map, you see the line right there from is actually the canal, to think that we're not going to start seeing some cases work its way here. We've been doing really well. The state numbers have been over 1,000. They were in that 300 range for a while. Now it's in we're testing a lot of people. If you look below that, you see new individuals tested on that day. That's new individuals. So someone who works in healthcare that might get tested every other week is not a new individual. And that's at 20,000. So we have robust testing. You tend to find more, but that's still, no matter what, that's still more cases. And I'll explain something in a second. And our percent positivity is high. You want to see that it's 1.6% if you can't read it statewide. You want to be less than 1%. That tells you that it's not really community spread occurring at a less than 1%. Coming over here, this is also in the weekly chart. I just take each week and I just sort of snap it onto the new to this chart. And you can see where we've been at 2 points. So the bottom one is 2.1.
Yeah, and if you could tell us what the current numbers are, because we're really far from the screen.
I apologize.
No, it's not you. It's just where we have to sit.
Yeah, so it's 9 cases over the 2 week span. That is the 2 full weeks prior to the Wednesday and now Thursday. 2.1 per 100,000 is low. It's a positivity rate of 0.36%. And the reason I want to explain that is when we were in the gray, we were at 0.3%. We're in the green and we're at 0.3%. And the reason why is back when we were in the gray, we were doing about 12 to 1,400 tests per 14 days. So around 600 to 700 per week. We're now at the 1,200 tests per week. So we test more, you're generally going to find it'd be really hard to get less than 5 cases when you're testing over 14 days, 2,500 people, right? So I think, and part of the data gets, the more you test, the more you find. You do have some asymptomatic positive that you weren't collecting earlier on. So that's also, early on when you were getting 1,000 a day, that was 1,000 sick people, right? And maybe some healthcare workers in a long-term care. Now you're testing if you're going for a knee replacement or, you're going for a procedure, dental procedure, you might be getting it. So, and we are seeing some of these cases to be asymptomatic. So some of the 9 will be asymptomatic, where I didn't see many asymptomatics when we might be getting 10 or 15 a week. So, we're good. We're doing well. When you see the red going back to the chart, that tells me that, will we stay green? We might have our issues coming up, and hopefully not, but especially as the holidays do come and people do travel. And I wanted to talk about travel. If you look down at the state, I can't see it, but it's the state itself is in the red. So this travel advisory, the state would fail its own metric for travel advisory. So traveling inside of Massachusetts, it would still be like traveling to a state that we would have a quarantine on. So, traveling, in this upcoming Thanksgiving and so forth, you have to do it carefully. Looking at the county's, data, we sort of mimic the county. We have these ups and downs. The last 2 days of the county actually have been over 20 cases. So you can start seeing some more cases in the county. So, is it starting to creep in here? Perhaps, I hope not. So that's kind of where we are with cases. Now, hospitalizations have still been really good, right? So if all the cases were mild, that's a good thing, right? So it's not good to have cases, but if they're all mild, they're all mild. We don't get worked up about other diseases that are mild. So as long as the hospitalizations stay low and the capacity of the hospitals and all that stuff that we talked about earlier in the spring, we have been in there. So Falmouth earlier in the week had 1. It's been 0 at Cape for a little while, almost probably several days to almost a week. So that's a good sign. That's, it means that the healthier people might be getting it, or we're getting some of these tests. Like I said before, when you're testing 2,400 people every couple of weeks, that you tend to get some positives that you normally would not have caught earlier in the spring. So I guess the best way to sum it up is Falmouth is still doing well. We're still in that sort of, going way back to that first chart, in that less than 10. But going to the state, you can see the sort of is the tsunami going to make it to us type of thing. Even though 8 per 100,000 is still a relatively known number to get you into the red, it's still, relative. It just says that once you hit that threshold, the likelihood that you start seeing more community spread within that community. And some of these towns were told to go back to step 1 in phase 3 just this past week. As far as testing goes, I think we're relatively close to getting accurate PCR tests, like the testing that we're working that one time off with the teachers. Those types of tests are being vetted. And as they get more and more to the schools or to the communities, would be a better way of saying it, that the more that you can quick test people, cheaply, rapidly, and accurately, the better off we can be, because, some of the problems are always, a lot of other diseases mimic COVID. And so you're sending people home and they may or may not be. So if we can get to a point, and I think we're not far off, where we can get people to be tested quickly and rule out COVID, the better off we'll be. So that's it in terms of cases, in terms of where we're at. You guys have any questions?
Thank you so much. Thanks for always bringing us the update. Does anybody have any questions? First thought.
Stand agree.
Thank you for your time and always giving us a helpful update.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Scott. Take care.
Thanks, Scott.
See ya.
Update from the superintendent. You're on.
Thank you. So to kind of continue with this, I'd like to introduce you to our new public health nurse, Jennifer Reisfelder. If we can promote her. And okay, everyone, I'd like to introduce you to Jennifer Reisfelder. This is our new public health nurse. She has been an extreme support during this time, and we are so happy that we had the opportunity to hire her. We thank Scott McGann for the foresight and the recommendation to have this person on board in the Falmouth Public Schools. She's extremely busy every day answering questions, which is some of what Scott says has been happening since March, and helping us with that. She also takes the lead on if anyone's feeling symptoms, as you know, and our plan that if anyone has symptoms that they, students or staff need to, if they're COVID-like symptoms, need to go home, be tested, quarantine if necessary. And so we certainly have been busy. Jen, I don't know if you'd like to say anything.
Certainly make her bigger, so if we run into her and Stop and Shop, we know what she looks like. Okay. Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. Yes, as Lori said, I'm very, very busy answering lots of questions and helping all the families. Something that I did want to let everybody know about is about our sibling policy, that if one of the students has any symptoms or is being tested for COVID-19, we ask that you keep your other siblings home that are involved in the school. Also, if a parent is a teacher, until the test is resulted. This has been great because we've been really low in numbers, barely no positive cases. So we just ask that the families just cooperate with me, that I ask you to just keep everybody home until it's safe for everyone to return to school.
Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and thanks for helping us find our way through this.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, sorry. So she was just saying that barely any cases. Have we had any cases in our schools?
So I was going to do that as an update, but I'll do that right now. No, that's fine. Good introduction, Jen. So we have had a few cases with students. They have been all remote. And so we have not had any in-person student cases.
They were remote before they tested positive, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't put them in remote. They've all been remote students. We've not had any in-person students. We have one remote student that is now in person, but was remote at the time. So all of our students have been remote. And we've had one employee, but what had also actually been out of work. So they were not in person teaching. And so we actually have had no cases where we've had to do any contact tracing. So the students are.
And hopefully everybody is okay.
And everyone is okay.
Okay. Most importantly, hopefully everyone is okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, Kelly, that was great. Yeah. And so you know, we are taking, as Jim said, we are taking a conservative approach with the siblings. And that is the policy here, that if any student or staff have symptoms, that everyone in the household, as she said, we are asking them to also stay home until the student was or staff member with symptoms actually test negative. And then the siblings can return, and the person with symptoms can return when they're symptom free. We just, you know, we know that it's not, but we're, you know, providing, you know, quality remote learning option for families. And so I just feel like it's just the best move for everybody, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Leah. Okay. Just a follow-up question to that. So if a family member is a close contact and they are getting tested, but don't know the result yet, would that mean that the kids that are in that family should stay out of school also? Or if it's a spouse of a teacher?
So we have to back up, and Jen, I don't know if you want to come back as Dr. Parkinson can certainly take out their video as well.
Were you able to hear the question?
We have to understand the question because
Okay, I think
he
she's
said
got-
exposure, I think.
So if, for example, if there is a teacher at the school and her spouse is a close contact and is getting tested but doesn't have the results, would that be would the teacher need to stay out of work, or and the
Yeah.
children? Yes.
Because the COVID test is pending, so we would want them to stay home until the test has resulted.
Okay, so even if it's not them, but it's their spouse or a child in their home. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. That's good to clarify. Appreciate that. Any other questions?
So
Did you want, I think you were in midstream, so
Yeah,
sorry.
No, that was great. I just wanted to make sure that we understood the question, because there's lots of scenarios and we're trying to, you know, understand everything, and I did not want to misspeak. I will say that Jen's been very knowledgeable and extremely helpful. I don't know if Dr. Parkinson is ready to join us. He's one of the panelists. Hi, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Dr. Parkinson. I know we were talking about the siblings a bit. I don't know if there's any other issues that you would like to talk about that help everyone understand our decision making.
No, I think I would just say that, you know, and we continue to navigate this very narrow path so far successfully, and you know, we hope to continue to be able to do that. I think once again, I would just reinforce the importance of what the weather in the community means for the weather in the schools. And so, you know, it's gone from sunny to partly to mostly cloudy, I would say, in the state. And so, you know, if we're thinking about protecting ourselves from the storm, we got to think about how we're going to keep the kids and the staff of the schools healthier, and that's by keeping the community healthier. And so I would just emphasize in your daily life to continue to, you know, to limit what we've seen in around the country and around other places is as people congregate together more, we're seeing an increase in cases. You know, part of that has been students returning to school. Part of that has probably been people congregating indoors, you know, whether there's compliance with mask issues. And with the holidays upcoming, I think it's not too soon to start thinking about how are you going to limit the number of people that you're going to see, because, you know, again, we can look ahead and say Thanksgiving, a lot of young people coming back to town, time of year where a lot of us travel ordinarily. And I think as you know, we've talked about in my own home, is that, you know, anything that we do, you have to ask yourself, if this is the time when I potentially have 14 days of quarantine or have some other situation where somebody is potentially exposed, was it worth the exposure? And there are times when every one of us says, I need to do this for whatever reason. But just being very cognizant of it and being very aware that, as the weather gets colder and people move indoors and people come in from other places, you continue to see scenarios where there's risk, and it's just really important that people continue to try to do the right thing. And if anyone has questions, I'm certainly available.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Parkinson? No. So Dr. Parkinson, if you can hang on for just a minute, because with what I'm going to talk about, and I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Scott, again, had actually talked about the upcoming holidays, and we've spent some time talking about the holidays as well. And we know that this is a time where families do tend to get together, friends and families, more often perhaps than other times. And I guess I want just to encourage families that if you are going to travel, as Scott said, perhaps anywhere in Massachusetts, or to any other state that's not on the the safe state list, or having family members or friends come into Massachusetts, and the gatherings that Dr. Parkinson just mentioned, it certainly increases the risk. And we want to encourage that perhaps you would keep your students home for the 2 weeks of after any break. That would be kind of the equivalent of a 14-day self-imposed quarantine just to be safe. So that, again, we're just trying to keep everybody safe and keep the risk low and the potential spread at a lower risk. I know that I have said in my communications that we don't want students waking up each day and deciding to go remote. If you're in person, it's an expectation that you're in person. If you're remote, you're a remote student. And so it shouldn't be a daily decision. But I think this decision around the holidays is a smart move, and one that we absolutely support. I think that if this is a situation, then you would contact the principal and let them know that either leading up to the holiday or post-holiday, that you may choose to have your children remote. Again, it's the same education. It's the same, the way that we've been able to set up the remote and the in-person learning. It would be the same education. You're just continuing it at home for 2 weeks opposed to being in. So I just want to encourage that. I don't know if Dr. Parkinson, you want to add to that or comment on that?
No, I think that just echoes what I just said.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about, are you all set? I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah, no.
Okay, any questions for Lori?
Okay, I'm not done with my update now.
Oh, okay. Oh,
that was just that part.
Just that part. I
Just that part.
Sorry.
So we actually have several updates tonight. I'd like to ask Joan if you would talk about, just give an update on the flu shots. Dr. Woodward?
There she is.
Hello, everyone. So as you know, the Falmouth Public Schools, our nurses, along with the Barnstable County Department of Health, offer a staff flu clinic every year. And this year we did do our building-based flu clinics for our staff and their families. Something that was different this year was that all of our clinics did take place outside under some tents at our schools. And I just wanted to share out some information about numbers with with the vaccination. So the total number of vaccines that were given out at the flu clinics across the district were 413. When we break that information down, we look and we see that the total staff at each school from our flu clinics, comprised of 250 of our staff members did receive their flu shots. At our clinics, we also had 93 family members receive vaccines at the clinics. And we had 71 of our students enrolled in the Falmouth Public Schools within that. An important piece of information that I think is worth speaking to as well is that, as we know, all of our students are required to be vaccinated by December 31st. To date, what we have on record with the 71 students that were vaccinated during our flu clinics, in addition to 757 students that were vaccinated at other locations, is a total of 828 students that have received the vaccine so far. So that is good information, and it's good numbers trending into our December 31st deadline of student vaccinations. And all of our clinics did happen within the month of October.
All right, thank you, Jen. Could you also just give us a brief update on the PCR testing?
Why, certainly. So as you're all aware, the district had the opportunity to offer the COVID-19 PCR, and it's a saliva test. We did begin that testing yesterday. This was completely voluntary for our staff, and it was a PCR test that would be offered to our offered to our staff at the locations in their school buildings. So with the schedule that we have testing that was done began yesterday, also today, and we will have another at 4 of our schools testing sites on Thursday. So out of our staff within the district, 77 staff did take the opportunity to participate in this voluntary testing. We had another 14 participate today, and we have another anticipated 43 staff that are signed up for Thursday. So we did have a total by the end of the week, it appears that we'll have a total of 134 staff members who participated in this voluntary test.
Thank you, Joan. I appreciate it. Just wanted to mention at our last meeting, we talked about the full schedule for the hybrid. So that was a question from Melissa, and I just we were able to get that out. I hope everyone was able to receive it. So from Morse Pond, Lawrence, and the high school, if anyone wants to see that, please reach out to your principal if you did not receive it, so that you can say it was a good suggestion. I'm glad we were able to finish that. So thank you, Melissa.
Thanks very much.
There was a question that came about, and I just wanted to share with the community. We certainly, know that we have the 3 models, and that anytime that can change, we all hope that at some point we can all be in person. And so we were not predicting at this point whether we're going to be in the hybrid for the year, although I think that's probably a pretty good prediction. We certainly, have the model to be fully in person, but that would have to be without restrictions if we had any opportunity to come back. As well as, and I certainly hope that this doesn't happen and that we'll get to stay in the models we are, but we are prepared to go fully remote if that is also. So I just wanted to clarify again that also could change anytime during the school year, changing models. So, but that's the hybrid schedule if we stay in the hybrid for the year.
Well, I have a question. Yeah. What will be the determining factors or guidance, just so that our families are fully prepared and can know what to look for?
Absolutely.
Since we just heard from Mr. McGann, and he said that we were doing fairly well here in Falmouth.
Mm-hmm. We are doing great, and we hope that continues. To come back in person at the 3 upper schools would have to be without restrictions. Right now, we can only do the hybrid with the current restrictions. So the restrictions would have to lapse to be able to do that. To move from the current models in person at the youngest grades or or the hybrid at the other schools, the numbers in Falmouth would have to be sustained at the red level for weeks to make that decision. So, and as Scott explained, it would have to be an indicator in the community other than if it were, isolated at nursing homes. The others are the colleges or prisons or that type of thing. But in our community, it would be around the nursing homes if it was. But strongly encouraged if we are not seeing the cases within the school, even if they do rise in the community, we're not seeing the cases or the spread in the schools, we are encouraged to stay open. And so knowing it, I think that we have built a strong relationship between Scott and Dr. Parkinson and Jen. Now that we really understand the numbers and we'll be able to know what's happening with that. So thank you for that question, Melissa. I just wanted to, I hope people get to see the New York Times article. It was about our outdoor classrooms. And in the paper last week, it was also, Troy had an article. Again, I just want to say thank you to the Outdoor Classroom Committee and all the work that you're doing. It's really fabulous. The students and the staff are enjoying it. It is nice to be able to be outdoors and to have that mask break, and it feels good. That's what I'm hearing around. So I just wanted to give another shout out to the committee that's done, it's reflective of this great community and just everyone just kind of jumping in and helping both their time and by donations. So I appreciate that. The next update we're going to give is Patrick. So if you will, I believe you're going to talk a little bit about the update on grants.
Yeah, sure. So think of these grants as different buckets of money, and I'll describe how they need to be administered. But one of the grants is called the CVRF COVID Relief Fund grant. And what Falmouth has decided to do is just focus that on covering our temporary staffing needs. And this grant has to be spent by December 30th. It was $700,000. And so we had the time period of July 1st through December 30th. Over the summer, we spent a little bit of this on food service staff to cover the meals we served during the summer and some of the custodial overtime that was needed for obvious reasons, getting the buildings ready. But the bulk of the money is for the temporary staff, including 6 remote teachers, grade 3 overflow, a public health nurse who you met, a float nurse, a system-wide nurse, 6 health assistants, 9 staff assistants, TAs, recess lunch monitors, 7 of those, school monitors at FHS 7, and 29 substitutes, temporary substitutes that we've just proactively put across the district in every building as a way to provide the coverage that's needed with our physically distanced classrooms. So that money, we're on track to spend that down across those positions, about 62 positions by December 30th. That's one pot of money. Then
Patrick, before you move on, can we do a question? Can I interrupt you for a question? Thanks.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Hi, Patrick, it's Leah. So this is temporary funding. So how are we going to be paying for those staff members beyond December 30th?
So the federal government and state government have not given us any indication of that. So we have two ideas then. There's another pot of money that there's a longer time period. It's called the Esser Grant, and we haven't touched that. So starting in January, we would begin to touch that. And that's about $375,000. The other thing, the benefit to having 29 substitutes is that we're not having to spend down our normal substitute budget during the first portion of this year. So that is going to be effectively a pot of money that is in the local budget that we really haven't touched going into January. So between the Esser funds and the normal substitute budget, we're pretty close to being able to continue with these temporary positions. We don't have a perfect idea of what that's looking like going through June, but the bulk of these we would be able to fund. There is still hope, obviously, that the federal government will provide another stimulus package, but we'll need to see. But every single district is in the Commonwealth and across the country is in the same boat on this. There was an enormous amount of supplies and materials that were needed to get these schools up and running, and that was paid for through money that the town has administered. It's municipal money, and they've been terrific in helping us, get basically any of the supplies and materials that we needed. And just from the count would be from July through October 15th, we've already spent, it's 7 pages of material totaling $439,000. We expect to spend another $150,000 to $170,000 from October 15th through December 30th, so approximately $600,000. And that includes things like 300 air purifiers, several hundred fans, many dozens of two-way radios, all the PPE that we've described in the past, 20 of the I've heard them called foggers or of sanitizing units that the custodial staff use, hundreds of gloves, lots of chairs and desks, right? We needed to get rid of all those tables. So hundreds of those chairs and desks, storage containers in order to put some of the stuff that we can't, the furniture that we couldn't use because it didn't allow for children to physically distance. So the carts for food service to deliver meals across the district and across schools. The technology, to a huge extent, we've used it to buy technology, whether it's the audio equipment and headphones, or let alone the Chromebooks in specialized cameras that were required to help allow for remote teaching. So, and every municipality did receive an allocation, and it's really based upon population and things like that. So that has been a huge help to the district, and working with the town closely to do that has been really important work. And I do have to thank, when you're thinking about this many purchases, in a very, very short period of time. The amount of work that goes into that, both on the school side and the town side, is immense. And there are Lisa Kraus, Leanne Peterson, Don Drew, Marcel Sanchez on the school side, Donna Bordieri, Barbara Mitchell, Darlene Delancey have all been fantastic support staff to help get this stuff done and get this in to the district, let alone some great people over on the town side who have been helping to process this stuff. So there's been an enormous amount of work done. I do not have long-term answers on this, bluntly. None of us do. We have some best guesstimate ideas on what's next. It does feel like we will have enough and do have enough on the supplies and materials side of it. Being able to maintain staffing through the June is a question, but at this point I believe I have like an 85 to 90% of the answer. I don't have 100% of the answer. And then going into next year is a different question. So we've been very fortunate that the town has been helpful and supportive, and we have a lot of good people who have worked really, really, really hard to get our schools up and running.
Thanks, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. Our next update is going to come from Sonia, and I believe she has some guests with her. We would like to share a little bit about Schoology with you tonight. Just some of the long-term benefits of Schoology. It's a seamless integration with PowerSchool. They have merged companies, and we've been with PowerSchool since about 2006. And with any new program that you introduce, there are some growing pains with that, but we expect to get the same level of service with Schoology that we did with PowerSchool. We have secured a coach, which I think is going to be introduced tonight, a teacher to support the implementation. He is a user in real time, and he's going to help use his knowledge of problem solving skills to help coach other staff members. We also thank you, Mike Falcone. He is working directly with Schoology to work through issues, and they are being able to deal with those on a regular basis. So why a learning management system like Schoology? You're able to do attendance, the grading. It does rostering daily. You can integrate apps. There's a discussion board feature. We will have parent access. We'll be introducing that eventually. There's a group feature to build communities within and outside of Falmouth Public Schools. Some of you that's been on the homework advisory committee knows that we were able to have the groups. Also, my current COVID staff and parent advisory are also using that. We also are creating groups. It's a secure site that our mentors through VIPS can be a part of the mentoring with students. So we are setting up groups such as that. Our Tech for Learning Committee reviewed and selected Schoology from a number of learning management systems. They selected Schoology for its features and the ease of use. We do believe that we need time, like anything, for teachers to be able to learn and to practice. And so at this point, I want to turn it over to Dr. Collier.
Thank you, Dr. Dorr. And as you shared, I am joined this evening by Mr. Mike Falcone, who is our Director of IT, and Mr. Mike Campbell, who is both a computer science teacher at Falmouth High School and is our newly announced Schoology integration coach on a part-time basis. And so I want to thank both Mikes for being able to join me this evening and sharing some information with you. I would just like to add to a couple of the points that you raised around training and support. We've done a number of training sessions from the introduction and navigation level to some of the more sophisticated features that some people have wanted to look a little bit more deeply at. Certainly ahead of planned implementation of some of those features. And we record those sessions, and we've been warehousing all of those and trying to create a professional learning library of our own. Inside of Schoology, we have a resource area that we've built out from the Office of Teaching and Learning. Mr. Campbell is often one of our featured presenters on those. He has done a 3-part series on setting up gradebook, as well as a short tutorial from yesterday that he shared out with staff that will be able to be loaded. Mr. Falcone's created an internal ticketing system, something that he can talk about, but allowing us to capture detail and really track trends. And then Mike Falcone and I are on routine calls with the Schoology team. We have a regular point of contact with whom we meet once a week for a Zoom call. And then we have other members of their software engineering team and their product development team to be able to realize some of the features that we wanted as part of the seamless integration that may be affected by their integration into the PowerSchool family because they're no longer an independent company on their own. And one of the key things that they're working on is building the partnership with PowerSchool and merging the two systems together into one unified product. Before I turn it over to either Mr. Falcone or Mr. Campbell to share more, I would also like to just share that through our mentoring and induction program this year, one of the things that we started was building out, because we knew that we wouldn't, as time got closer, it became evident, right, that we knew that we wouldn't be able to be face-to-face in the Falmouth High School library in the same way we normally are as part of our mentoring and induction program. So we built our mentoring and induction year 1 experience in Schoology as a course. And so from the very first day that we met our new colleagues, we've introduced them to this resource. And I also want to just add a special thank you to the teaching and learning specialist, Mr. Derek Zara, who's been able to build that and help build relationships and share this information out. So before I speak anymore or share any of the high level summaries of some of the action we've taken, I would really appreciate being able to turn this over to Mr. Mike Campbell, our Schoology integration coach, and to be able to share some of the work that he's been doing. With his students' permission, they're allowing him to showcase some of the work that they're building out as their class. So Mr. Campbell, thank you for joining us. Oh, there you go.
Hi, everyone. I've been asked to share some of the work I have created on Schoology. So I'm just going to share my screen. So this is, and I should ask, how I can talk for as long as you would like, but I'm not sure how much time I am afforded here.
I think we're only an hour over our actual agenda at this point.
So what's 2 hours, right? So this is the main landing page that both students and teachers would see. And me being a teacher, I see all of the classes that I am a teacher of. The students would see their classes. One class I have built out that I'm going to share with you today is my AP Computer Science Principles course. And one thing that I like about Schoology is, and one thing I see it only getting better is in the future, everything is in one place. Another big thing I like about it is the communication. So right here, as you look at my class, I have this announcement that kind of just lets my students know what they need to do. Okay, what is the most important thing that has to get accomplished for the next time we're in class. As we scroll down, you're going to see my landing page. And in the landing page, it has all of the important information that students use every single class. And I know that someone had mentioned they were unable to see the screen. Is this big enough? Can you guys see this?
We can see it, yeah. In concept, we just can't read the text.
Gotcha. Okay. So like I said, this is kind of all the important information that students need. And it has my office hours, right here, some links that are important for students to use. And then just a brief description of how my assignments and materials are listed below. So, I'll just show you very briefly what I do. The way I organize my classes is the most current and recent assignments are listed at the top. So we just started a new unit, Unit 4, and the notes are right there. These are kind of notables. These are work that student complete while I'm giving my lectures, just to make sure they're following along and keep track of any thoughts or responses I'm looking for. Below that, we have the entire unit. Here's Unit 4 with all of its contents. And then one last thing I definitely want to showcase is the previous unit we worked on, Unit 3. Now, just to let you know, it might seem like we've been here a while because we're on Unit 3. I just started with Unit 3 because of obviously the limited time. I want to really prioritize some of the content in Unit 3. And this is where the students started to learn to develop apps on their own. And the one feature project I want to show is where these students designed an app. And here are all of the tasks within that project. And if we go into that, you can get a little bit of a better view. At the top, so this is Unit 3. This project spanned over multiple days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And the students had to do 3 things. They had to complete a planning guide, they had to participate in discussions, and then submit a link to their application along with a written response. So below here, they have a link to the project guide. Here is the first discussion that they partook in, and we'll just take a quick look at that. On this page, the students were required to comment their idea, and their classmates were required to let them know something that they know about the idea. So here we have an example of Axel Jensen. He wanted to make an app about red pandas, how cute they are and why they are endangered. And the students were supposed to reply with something they know about the topic and something they'd like to know. These comments were then, this feedback was, the student was required to incorporate that feedback and then write about that incorporation. So if we head back to the project page, we can see a little bit below here, after the students had their prototype of their app, they were required to share the link to their app and then get some feedback. And again, they were required to write about this feedback and then talk about how they incorporated it. So the culminating product that I have as a teacher is I'm able to make use of the portfolios. So everyone has a portfolio that they can make use of. You could think of this in an art class, maybe students would be preparing their portfolio that they're going to send off to a college. Maybe in an English class, a student has a portfolio of all their writing samples. And it's good to know that this portfolio can span multiple grades. So the portfolio that I've created is one of all those apps. So this is my first portfolio right here, and it's just the 2020 AP CSP first app. This is the first app all of my students have created. And so below here, you can see a lot of the different apps that all of my students have made. So here is Axel's. And I do want to bring up one thing. Mrs. Tellier did mention that I had asked permission from my students, and she reminded me about that at 6 o'clock today. So one thing I like about Schoology is its communications tools. And she might have noticed that I had a little delay in my response there. And that's because where are we here? At 6:04, I had reached out to my students and kind of just sent them a message saying, hey, I'm talking to the school committee tonight. Is it okay if I share some of your apps? And I got a really great response from, I think, 9 of my students. So there's just the proof that I do have permission to show Axel's. Yes, that'd be okay with me. Just the proof that I have permission to show Axel's app. I think we are here. So here's Axel's app. And let's go into it. So what you're seeing, this is a view as someone who can edit this portfolio. But if I just want to quickly preview it and then click on this link, I'm going to be able to see Axel's app. And So I was prepared for this oh, look at that, there it is. So this app is meant to be displayed in a phone. And that's one of the cool things I like about my class, about the apps we make in classes. The students can share this app with their friends via a text message. And so it's just a very simple app that just displays some information about red pandas. Now that's a fun one. I have other examples of a student who created an app about misogyny in its presence today. And she goes into the details of that. But this is something I like about the class I teach is it allows students to work on projects that are important to them. Some kids just like to have fun, and other kids like to express themselves on topics that they find important. But yeah, so I've done this project or a project similar to this in person, but using that discussion feature that you see here, the discussion feature, and then putting all of this information in one place really allowed for this project to work a whole lot smoother. A couple last things. I haven't filled an hour yet, but I'm getting close.
Yeah,
A couple last
we
things.
have a speaker sitting in the wings, so I don't
Sorry,
want to cut you short, but if we could.
Yeah, just a couple of last things. So just some standards I have linked to each of these activities. So as I evaluate these, I would love to show you how all those standards then get that organized. But I don't want to present any individual grades. But yeah, that is, I think that's a high level example of where we'd like students to be, our teachers to be, in the next few months and at the end of this year.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Sonia, did you say that that Mike was also going to join, or?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mike is here, and he has been a key member of the support and our contact with Schoology. I don't think Mike is necessarily prepared to share anything directly, but as the three of us are here, if the school committee has any questions that we can answer.
I'll share a little bit of data since I have some in front of me, if that's helpful at all. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, let's see where our questions lead us, and maybe we'll end up touching on them. Terry, go ahead.
One thing I've heard banged around in this discussion is seamless integration. From all that I've been hearing from students and teachers, it isn't seamless. And one thing that I worry about is a lot of kids on this Schoology app lose their homework assignments, or they do work and it's lost. So I know that teachers need to be trained, but and I heard Sonia, I think, mentioned mentoring for this, but it looks to me like, I don't know, it still seems kind of overwhelming in various at various parts between teachers and students. So are we going to be working with students, I guess, is my very bottom line.
I had a conversation with Mrs. Gans earlier this week about ways that we can begin to support students as well, and to in part use Clipper time in addition to some of the resources that we can share with students directly for them to be able to access. So we are working on what is the best plan with the time in student schedules that is currently available.
Okay, because I would have thought they would be the ones that would be leading the charge on this because, students and technology, but anyway, I'm just hearing too much. I think they need some help too. Thank you.
Leah, then Natalie?
So my question is, having a daughter who's at Lawrence and is navigating this new system, and a question that she has asked and that I'm asking now is, it seems very similar to Google Classroom, and she's very familiar with that. And she's having a hard time now navigating Schoology. I'm just wondering why the shift from Google Classroom. This seems very different than PowerSchool to me, what PowerSchool is used for. But looking at it as a learning tool like Google Classroom, why the shift from Google Classroom to Schoology?
One of the key pieces for us is looking at Google Classroom is a course management tool and Schoology as a learning management tool, which on the face of it may make them sound like they are quite similar. With Google, everything is discrete and it's not, we don't have the connection to PowerSchool. We don't have the rostering feature. We don't have some of the other abilities that are there. And we haven't even begun to build out some of the other capabilities in PowerSchool's, in Schoology or the PowerSchool Schoology link, because we're getting started with sort of the digital classroom aspect. And I think that to the point that Mike Campbell had raised earlier about building out the courses now and trying to bring the content in and where we are a few months from now. There's a lot of other tools and resources that expand the capability of Schoology well beyond that of Google Classroom. One of the other pieces for us that we didn't get a chance to share in the presentation, but that Dr. Dorr also shared, is that it gives us an opportunity to bring in community members, mentors, find other ways to engage our students. And we also know that some of our athletic teams had considered or were looking at ways that they could create groups to also have the coaches be in that constant contact with the students in the way that Mr. Campbell shared, the sending the message out to his roster earlier, but coaches would be able to send similar information out to their athletes. So it continues to build out a plethora of resources. And when Mike Kimball was sharing, you could see there were additional opportunities in that left-hand menu that we didn't even have a chance to touch on, that just makes it a more robust program with further reach than Google Classroom. And one of the other pieces I think that stood out for us too, and this goes a little bit beyond your question, Leah, but you're making me think about this part, is around the idea of college and career readiness and college readiness and students having, we've gone back and forth about whether or not to make a graduation requirement, right? And this has been a long time conversation, students taking one online course and learning how to manage the various ways that different educators might organize their digital classrooms, might use the LMS is also, one of the pieces that also comes up in having our students be able to navigate the different features and aspects and not strictly work within one lane.
No, yes, so actually Leah asked the question I was going to ask, because I too am hearing from students at Lawrence that it's very difficult to navigate. And so Sonia, you mentioned that we were going to maybe look into providing services for students at the high school. And I would strongly advise that that also goes down to Lawrence as well, because I'm hearing teachers and students are challenged by Schoology right now.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Bill.
Is the grading component paralleling with PowerSchool? Because initially, from some comments from teachers, that it wasn't. Is that now linking better?
I can answer that for you. So basically, once you have everything set up in both of them, you have to push a button to sync your grades from Schoology to PowerSchool. And I heard a comment earlier where someone was actually specifically mentioned that they'd see one percentage for a grade within Schoology and another one in PowerSchool. And I actually helped a teacher with this exact issue earlier today. And basically all the teachers, we've sent out documentation on how to set up the classes in PowerSchool. And I just had to sit down with this teacher and help him go through the steps that we have documented to properly set it up so that basically so that it will weigh the grades from Schoology properly. So if you have points set up, grading set up with points in Schoology and then a different weighting in PowerSchool, they're not going to match up. So you have to you basically have to make all your settings the same in both systems, and then it's fairly seamless. So there is a bit of a learning curve and some instructions that the teachers do have to go through.
So this is then still a work in progress?
I guess you could describe it as that. I mean, the systems itself works. It's just if it's not set up properly by the teachers, which it's a work in progress with us training them how to properly set it up.
Do we anticipate additional professional development for these teachers?
Yes.
Because the scary thing about a work in progress is our kids learning. And I think that's the key to this, and the frustration. If kids come up with frustrations, the learning process drags. And in today's society with COVID, and we've been dealing with this since last March, when we just decided to shut the whole darn thing down. I was going to use a different adjective, but I won't. So the continuity with the educational process concerns me if this seems to be slowly meshing with Power School. I think professional development is key, ongoing professional development and support of kids. I think Terry mentioned that. I think those things are critical because the aspect is we're here for kids. The progress needs to be done with kids. And I don't want to see that frustration build because we're trying to match up things and we're going into November. Those are things that are concerning to me.
Melissa, yeah.
I just have a couple of questions. I wasn't going to go in this order, but I will jump on Bill's bandwagon. I know that there are a lot of kids that are against Schoology, and based on Mr. DC's comments in public comment, that he took a survey and there's percentages. It looks like 82% of teachers weren't in favor. My concern is more of, I think of Mr. DC and his work that he doesn't have access to, that it doesn't link across. Is this part of the growing pain? Will that eventually be able to link? Like I don't want to call it Google Classroom, but I know that forgive me that I don't remember the exact platform he was speaking of that has all of his work on it. I'm concerned for those other Mr. DCs out there, other instructors that are, we're all struggling on this during this time right now. I'm worried about the kids and the 300+ petition I'm sure everyone's heard about against Schoology. But if this is truly just part of a learning curve for us to get through this, and that we can assure everyone that in a month's time, everything is going to be seamless as it's been presented to us, then I feel like we can offer folks a light at the end of the tunnel, because I feel like when you're in the thick of it, if you have a light at the end of the tunnel, you can work towards it. But right now, it sounds to me as though there is no light and it seems rather dark. Can you help?
Every question that we have received, we've been able to research and find responses to. One of the things that we found early on is that some people thought it was their individual challenge or struggle and weren't communicating that. And as soon as we started to have those conversations, we were able to find the appropriate contacts in Schoology and start to design the solutions. I know that both Mike Campbell and Mike Falcone have sent personalized instructional videos to a great number of teachers or created one-on-one opportunities. And then I've also had an opportunity to talk to a number of our colleagues as well as several of our students. And they shared, different ways that they were encountering either challenges or things that they had learned along the way. And then we're working to broadcast that information. I know that there's an additional tool in terms of sharing some of these solutions and supporting colleagues that Mr. Campbell has started that he wasn't able to share on this evening simply for the sake of time. But we are working very hard to collect the concerns as they come to us and get as much detail as possible so that we can find the solution and or understand that if it's a matter of adjusting settings that might have been taken in a different order from one of the earlier training sessions that we had, that we're able to support someone in getting that set up in the right steps so that that can be used without continued concern.
Do we have additional time to add some PD through the year for these teachers?
So we have continued to go through the concerns as they arise. And so I meet with the department heads and with the principals at Lawrence and the high school. We've been meeting at least once, sometimes twice a week. We took a portion of the time on our last professional development day and dedicated it to the integration of the additional tools like Padlet, Pear Deck, some of the things that we were asked to look at how they were connecting to Schoology. We also offered some different sessions just around organizing assignments or again, going through the grade book and helping with some of those settings. And we continue to evaluate. So we're getting ready to plan for our next half-day PD day. And I'm meeting with the team again on Thursday to look at what are the specific items and whether it's department specific or if it's school-wide or across both schools. To make sure that, you know, there's a portion of our day that's set aside for specifically addressing those, and a portion of the day that's set aside for making the connection between that functionality and how the teachers are teaching that particular content or unit.
Was that your last one, or do you have one more?
No, I think that, I mean, I feel for the teachers and I feel for the kids, and I just, we're in such a lousy time right now, and I wish that I could say that there's a better way, and it just doesn't appear as though that there is, and it's just one more hit, I guess.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I'm sorry that I can't, I understand it, you know, I understand that you said that the license, help me, Sonia, the license is expiring, or it doesn't, the Google Classroom, we can't use K-12.
There's just limited functionality in terms of some of the other things that we were trying to be able to access and then grow some of the community interaction. And one of the other pieces for us with Schoology is that we'll be able to introduce parent access, which we're unable to do with Google Classrooms. And that's another piece that we didn't necessarily talk about directly, but is another part of our timeline for implementation.
It's unfortunate that we couldn't have had a more of a seamless integration, but here we are.
Can I add in something? Because Google Classroom keeps getting mentioned. I'm on a tech director email list with a lot of the tech directors in the state, and it's today, as a matter of fact, there was a lot of conversation with problems people were having with Google Classroom, with students getting dropped out of the classroom that they keep having to fix. So a lot of the educational technology companies are being overwhelmed with problems right now, just because they're seeing more use than they ever have before. I know we're seeing them with Schoology, but every product that's out there, the other school districts are seeing issues with also.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Lisa, did you still have something, or we already hit it?
Well, mine's kind of a combination of everybody, because obviously I'm the last one to speak. I think my heart goes out to the teachers, because they had to take on so much with 10 days of professional development, trying to manage kids that are in the classroom and also the remote children, trying to basically just function. And I think to have a whole new platform that they have yet to learn, that on top of just the climate that we're in now, I can only imagine how overwhelming it is for them. My son also is struggling with Schoology, and definitely prefers Google Classroom. And I'm all for change. I'm all for advancement. I'm all for, you know, making things better, but I'm just wondering if timing wise, we jumped the gun on this one, and that if there's a way that we can go back to what we had just to get through the ugly climate of COVID, and when life looks a little bit better and a little bit easier, then introduce a challenging new platform that needs to have training for the teachers, needs to have training for the students, because I do feel that the kids are getting confused and frustrated, the teachers are frustrated, and I think that really creates more problems, and we already have enough stress just from our environment with COVID. So that's my thoughts on that. I think it would be great if this is something that's going to advance the kids, but I'm not hearing that at this point. Thank you.
Oh, John, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. You know, with regards to the change in dynamic of, I have a lot of empathy for both the teachers and the students and the parents, everybody trying to deal with things. With regards to extra tasks being allotted on people's jobs, that's a reality that many folks in many industries including myself, including my wife, my extended family, everybody I know is doing Herculean efforts to make companies continue to exist, make families and homes continue to exist. And I applaud everybody for their efforts. With regards to Schoology specifically, and just in general, all the tech stuff, I had sent an email out to all of the principals wishing them a good year, and that I felt that the tech, getting a good jump start on the tech was very important. And I'm glad to hear Sonia mention the mentoring, because one thing that I felt would be very effective would be to have a tech partner program, both for students with each other, with teachers with each other, parents with each other. So have like sort of a tech partner that we could ask questions of, so people, you know, don't know what they don't know. And then just I found that this helped me for this particular issue with posting an assignment. I work with my daughter on Schoology every day. And there are things about that I like, as far as things that I seem to see the assignments better than I did with Google Classroom as far as the listing. However, there were some things like whether or not assignment was submitted or not. That's something that I could use help with. For anybody want to be my tech partner? You know, but as far as if something was submitted or not submitted, sometimes assignments are, you know, access is not allowed at this point. Is it something that, you know, legitimately is the time is past due to do it, or is it something that you should be able to access and you can't? Now, the teachers have been extremely helpful and doing a great job. But, you know, one of the things like the Ed Puzzle, I don't know if I mentioned, Ed Puzzle wasn't there before. That's a real good program. So like anything else, it's something you work through. I don't think we should redirect the ship once we're underway. But that's just what I think as far as if you had tech partners. I like the fact that, and I like the fact that folks are bringing the issues up, because then we can address it and we can all work together to help make it work. Thank you.
Make sure I didn't miss anyone, since I almost missed two people. Thank you. Thanks so much for the information. Do we have any? Is that okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Next, we have our presentation from the Wampanoag Education Program. Natalie, did you want to introduce? Laura, do you want to? Who wants to?
I believe Roxanne Mills Brown is here and waiting, and we apologize profusely for the delay. It could be unexpected. Is she there?
Is she here, Roxanne?
I'm trying to find her in the attendees to promote her.
What's her last name?
Mills Brown.
I don't see her.
She dropped out. I had to step forward.
Sorry, I don't think we have her.
Okay. So if she ended up having to leave, you know, I apologize. We are very, very behind.
So I will contact her and see if she is there, but we'll reschedule if she's not.
Okay. And I'll apologize in advance to the presentation on the district goals, because if she comes back, we're gonna halt them.
Kitty Hendricks
Okay.
Miller is in this.
Pardon me?
Is Kitty Hendricks Miller someone who's also?
Yeah,
here?
that could be, yep. Yes,
She is here.
yes, why don't we promote her?
Yeah, her hands raised.
Okay.
Yep,
Yep.
that's our hand raised.
Oh, okay.
That's good. Oh, good.
Oh, my
Okay.
goodness.
Kitty, okay.
Just waiting for her camera and mic to turn on.
Hi, greetings. My name's Kitty Hendricks Miller, and I am the Indian Education Coordinator for the tribe. I don't know what happened with Roxanne. We had a lot of tech problems here. We only were able to listen on our phones for a while, and now we can access the video. So we have a PowerPoint that we sent ahead. So I'm not sure how this works. I'm new to all this technology and just kind of getting Zoom down. So we sent that ahead to Natalie,
And we do all the members all have copies of it in their hand, and I think we're gonna have access to it on the screen as well, are we?
Just a second.
Okay, great. So it'll be on the screen in just a second, but in the meantime, all of us have it in our hands.
Okay, so I guess, yeah, so what I do is my programs, our service area is 5 districts, which is Barnstable, Wareham, New Bedford, Falmouth, and Sandwich. So my role is to support students in advocacy and also in tutoring, academic support. Also what I do and what I'm good at, and my background is in cultural education, working at Plymouth Plantation for many years and working for the Quinn Wampanoag Tribe as their educational planner, and also being a tribal citizen. So I'll just list off things that my program provides. We provide classroom visits. We go into the classrooms, and I've been very present in a lot of the schools. T-Ticket, North Falmouth, we did a garden project with them there, and we've also presented cultural education in the way of a presentation with song and dance. And with those songs and dance, we kind of explain and we kind of tie in who we are with our performance, and those are very popular. And so along with the classroom visits, which I go in and we talk about Wampanoag life ways, yesterday and today, we provide professional development workshops and resources for teachers in the way, the books, resources, videos, links, those kind of things. I attend multicultural events with some students. We set up a table at different venues. And we do the cultural outreach to our Native citizens in the way of making regalias, our traditional clothing. We provide language classes in different schools that have room for us to rent. Like Wareham at the, I forget what school it was. One of the elementary schools gave us a space for 6 weeks, and tribal families were able to take a Wampanoag language class. We also do cultural nights here at the tribe at our building. But what I would like to do with more of the district schools is just be present there and, be a resource for the Native students, but also provide education to teachers and to staff and to also non-Native students. So everybody benefits because we're all in this together, especially in this time. It's hard for me to do what I do because I'm hands-on and I'm face-to-face, and a lot of what I do is sharing materials and sharing artifacts. So I have to kind of develop that kind of thing by way of Zoom, and I'm trying to present that too, that can be available to teachers. Once you get through the quagmire that you seem to be in right now, and my heart goes out to everyone. I'd never realized before tonight what the struggle really seems to be. We also, for our tribal citizens and their families, offer, here we are, Native Youth in Science, which is preserving our homeland science camp. We work with we pair scientists and culture keepers. NOAA is one of our partners, HUI, MBL, NSGS, US Fish and Wildlife, also the EPA is the one that funds the program. So for the science camp, we do a lot of scientists pairing their knowledge and also culture keepers pairing their knowledge and coming together to make sense of what we need to do to manage our resources and introduce environmental sciences to our students. And what do we have up here? We do Wampanoag Day, and that's something that we did with the Quashnet School 5th grade class, and it was very, very popular. So we would like to present that. That was something we're going to launch this year for district schools to be able to make coming to the tribe one of their annual field trips, very local, very doable. And we have learning stations set up in our powwow field where the students can spend 3 to 4 hours rotating the different stations. We have a STEM station, we have an arts and crafts station, and we kind of gear it towards learning about the estuaries, the rivers and ponds. And a lot of the activities are connected with all of that. And we do native games, dancing and songs, and we tie in sampling different Wampanoag foods. So that was very popular, and we thought that would be a good way for non-native students to also benefit from my program. Let's see, of course, that's going to be on the back burner for a while. And that's pretty much my presentation. I can take some questions, and I don't know what happened to Roxanne.
Please extend our apologies to her that we were running behind. But so I just want to ask a quick question first to clarify. So I can see from the amazing pictures and the information you just provided that most of what you were talking about are things for students. But you did say that you do some presentations or trainings for teachers too. Is that right?
Yes, and that's something that we can develop, and we're actually be able to launch a Thanksgiving professional development workshop, different ways to teach about Thanksgiving, because that's always present in the minds of a lot of teachers that have their curriculum based on, November, different ways to be inclusive and also to be sensitive and to be respectful. Yes, so right now we have a very popular teacher development workshop with Walk-White Bay Estuary Research and Reserve. And a few teachers from Falmouth, Barnstable, and Sandwich have attended, as well as teachers from off Cape. We can offer professional development points through the Framingham School, Framingham University. So that is available. We just did our first remote workshop this spring, and we are developing other workshops. Like I said, Thanksgiving is a big one because that's what we get asked a lot of, what do people do about Thanksgiving today, and how can we be better equipped to teach the real history and different perspectives concerning Thanksgiving. So we're just kind of trying to, especially now, seems like it's something that is doable because we can reach out to more people remotely than we were able to do before. A lot of the teachers that have attended our workshops make the time during their summer to attend them, because the one I'm talking about, the teachers on the estuary in the Wampanoag Circle of Life, that's a 4-day workshop. And they can come right to the location in Walk-White and learn all about life in the estuary and a lot of hands-on activities that they can try with their students. And then we all come together in the fall and then present what they were able to do to practice and to present their experience with their students and how it worked out.
Thank you. Thanks. Terry and then Leah.
Thank you very much. This was very colorful, very invigorating presentation that you gave. I have one question. I have 3 questions. The first one is kind of boring. It's about funding. How do you support your organization?
Well, my grant is from the Department of Education. It's an Indian education grant that's a formula grant. And it's to service the Native students attending those district schools, but it's also in a way that we can reach out to the teachers and the non-Native students through professional development and cultural resources, and also cultural outreach. So everybody benefits. But what we really want to do is know where our students are. It's very hard to, we know who we have on our database, our enrollment database, but we don't know, because my grant also services Native Americans, not just Wampanoag. Federally recognized tribes are under the students that I can service. I know a lot of the other grants that we have listed in that presentation are mainly Wampanoag that are living in a service area. So I can reach out a little more to Native Americans that have settled in the area. But also I try to incorporate the non-Native in the staff, because, you're going to make an effort really if it's more beneficial to, school-wide, as opposed to just a handful of students, because we are, there's not a lot of us, but there's enough that we were able to secure this grant with the numbers that we service that attend your schools. So it's really hard to know who these students are because of the privacy issues. So hopefully getting into the system and being able to distribute, our 506 forms, which we can, siphon through the school system and have you guys distribute for us so that we can have our count and we can know who these students are to better service their needs.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
And the other programs are all grant-based programs.
Okay, and then I'm a foreign language teacher, retired, so the language, I was wondering who teaches the language, and can you say anything in Wampanoag, you personally, or?
We have a lot of language going on. Right now, there's a language course being taught at Mashpee High School. And I believe the middle school as well, and that they will be able to get language credits for the Wampanoag class. It's taught by teachers, Wampanoag teachers, and it's the Wampanoag Language Reclamation Program, and you can look it up. It's WLRP.org. We also offer classes to the community. We have an elders class. We have a Montessori immersion school, which is located here on the government land, the government center. I incorporate some language words that you may not have known were Wampanoag words. Usually I do a little introduction to my presentation, but I was kind of caught off guard because I knew I only had 2 minutes to, support my program with information. But yes, we introduce ourselves in the language. I know phrases. I'm not fluent because I just started learning about 20 years ago, but it's hard for adult learners to learn a language. So I struggle with it, but I can introduce myself. I can say, and my mother is so-and-so, and, I know words for animals. I can count to 100, those kind of things that are interesting as a talking point as well, to explain about, Massachusetts being a Wampanoag word, and a lot of places that were surrounded, street names and town names that are Wampanoag. And there's reasons behind that. The translations are very interesting. So yeah, the language program is going very strong for the last 20 years. We have first generation speakers.
Thank you, and I'll give up on my other questions because other people want to ask stuff too. So.
Leah, go ahead.
Hi, Kitty. I'm Leah Palmer. So are there ways that we can, as the Falmouth Public Schools, better embrace and be culturally responsive to the Wampanoag tribe? And I know that's a really big question, but and I know that you were talking about some professional development that teachers can take part in, but thinking more systemically and big change pieces.
Mm-hmm. Well, you'll see at the end of the slide, we have a land acknowledgement, which is a good start. And people ask, what is a territorial or a land acknowledgement? And that is an acknowledgement. It's an act of reconciliation that involves making a statement recognizing the traditional territory of the indigenous people who called the land home before the arrival of settlers, and in many cases still do call it home. So that's a start, by posting that or acknowledging that. So at the end of the slide, you can scan that little barcode, and it takes you to a YouTube video, which you can hear the language at the top. It tells, you can see the Wampanoag in the top of the land acknowledgement. And if you scan that little thing with your camera, you'll be able to hear it spoken by one of our students. So we're distributing that about Walk White Bay is a state reserve. They're going to post those all around their reserves, like at South Cape Beach, the reserve in Walk White, different locations. So just that acknowledgement right there just recognizes that people have an understanding of where they are and who was here and who is still here. And that can also, oh, these are the Mass Chronicles. And I don't know what happened to Jerry. Did you guys get your copies of this book? We're building curriculum on the native stories that are highlighted in this book. There's a land acknowledgement. So the paragraph at the top is what you can hear in spoken and also the translation. So that's what we were asked by the Mashpee Public Schools to share with you tonight. And that's our chief, silent drum, and that's of course the Mashpee River, which is, you can't take a bad picture at that vista.
Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Andrew, do you have a question?
I can also send all my resources if anybody would like to, as a starting point, just get a brief history of the Wampanoag people and different books that have been approved by different natives and native publishers. So there's a whole lot of resources that I can share.
That would be wonderful.
I would love that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I think that would be really wonderful to share. And I think we have one more question if you have one more second.
And I'm doing a Zoom presentation over at T-Ticket. I don't know when, but they're going to get back to me on that one.
Hi, Kitty. I'm Andrea Thorold, and I was part of the group that got a chance to speak to you over the summer, and we're really pleased to have you here before the school committee. I remember being surprised as you talked to some of the districts that had participated in that about the number of tribal students that we had in our districts. Do you happen to have the Falmouth number off the top of your head? I don't remember it, but it was.
It's I want to say about 100, 90 to 100. It's one of our largest. Barnstable is the largest, and Falmouth is second. And I believe New Bedford's in.
Yeah, and so I also, I think Leah had asked a little bit about that, but I did want to reach out and just say and ask sort of what can we do to help build and develop relationships with the tribe? And I think you had mentioned a little bit of the needs earlier about getting some forms. What can we do to help you and to develop that partnership?
Actually, data sharing would be, I know that's pretty big with Roxanne. My forms are the 506 forms, and Sharon Reed has them, and I've sent them to the admin for the superintendent's office. So, they're aware of those forms. So in New Bedford, there's a family welcome center, and I have some brochures set up on a table, and I have the 506 forms, and they've been pretty good about sending those back to me. And it was really helpful when parents would register the students, the kindergartners especially, they would just put that in the packet. So that was really good because then we could track that student from kindergarten. Once we have that form, it's good for the whole, right up to grade 12. So what that form is saying that you are a Native American, and we have your address, we have your contact information, and that you give us permission to share information about your child. And we can take that further with, classroom teachers and administrative ways to help with, being able to view the grades, speaking to the teachers one-on-one, those kind of things, especially if we're helping them with a tutor or with an IEP, any of those things.
That's great, because I remember you talking about some of those additional supports and even things like the college visits and all these other resources that you can bring to bear to support those students. So that would be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, too, by listening tonight, maybe we can find some tech mentors, if that helps to take the load off of you guys, instead of tutors, but in what is needed. Sounds like that's what's needed. And we're trying to find ways for the staff to kind of get up to speed about what's going on with our students and what kind of programs they're using, just being, listening to the challenges you guys have with these, the Google Classroom and the new one that you're presenting. It might, be good for us to learn about that as well. So we can help somehow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much for spending time with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you.
Yep, you too. Peace Kanash.
Oh, there you go, Terry. You got it? Do you remember it?
Which could sound like it.
So next we have a presentation of the district goals, and everybody should have a printout. I'm assuming.
And we will also present it on the screen. Last year, we talked about moving to 3-year goals for the school improvement goals. And we also talked about having some district-wide goals across the schools. And we began working on those last January that we fully intended to present in June. And then we had a pandemic. And over the summer, the principals, we talked a lot about what should our goals be. And we felt that the 2 goals that we had been working on as a district-wide last year was extremely valuable and extremely important to continue. And then each school was going to have one additional goal that may be the same or different. And over the summer as we were working, we felt like we have a plan and we have 3 models, and that is probably the additional important thing. And so we chose as an admin group to go with the 3 goals similar across the district. So this is different than presentation that we would normally have in the past years. So are all of our principals present? We are going to promote them as panelists. Dr. Tyler is actually going to move through our shared goals, but all the principals are available for questions. So I'll turn it over. I think we're ready for the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dorr. So again, just to kind of bring us through, we have our 3 goals. The first of which in our call to action is to focus in on equity through cultural proficiency. And it's really, I think, apropos that we are following the presentation that we just had by Kitty as we go into our thinking with sustaining our work. So our rationale, and some of this was from work that we had done again this summer with our administrative council, but amplifying that our district believes in that our moral responsibility is to welcome, celebrate, and affirm the full spectrum and the intersection of human differences in and beyond our community. And community was an important word also in the conversations we had both about our mission and vision statements as a district. As we continue, we will practice risk-taking and challenge one another to continuously examine systems of privilege and bias and to work collectively and as we disrupt and dismantle inequity in all of its forms. In our work at the facilitation of Dr. Cleese-Wortham around our equity and cultural proficiency, we created an equity vision. It simply reads, learn who I am. Understand me, respect me, like me, and I will learn. And it calls out the relationships that are built with students in order to assist them in seeing their success and being their best selves as learners and ultimately as citizens. So we were further challenged in our work with Dr. Wortham to be able to have an operational definition of what equity means for the district. And in that initial session in trying to build out what we want to do for the work of our goal this year, we said that equity to us in the moment means breaking down the structures of power and privilege to open access to the same opportunities for all students through the inclusion of diverse peoples, their voices, and their perspectives to deepen the collective understanding of community and to create a true sense of belonging. So taking the sort of rationale that we're working with in the beginning and trying to pare it down into our definition and our intention for action. So that said, we returned to a graphic, and Dr. Wortham reminded us of this in our work, and I think this is a graphic that we have looked at in other contexts before around the difference of what's equal, giving everyone the same thing, and what's equity, giving everyone what they need in order to achieve the expectation. So here's our goal statement. Through specific and scaffolded professional learning, the Falmouth Public Schools will foster a common district-wide language and expectation for equity rooted in cultural proficiency to positively impact student growth and success for all of our learners. The following become the core foci of our work: our relationships and interactions with each other and with students, our shared values, our shared culture, the pedagogy we use to reach out to students and to make sure that we are able to differentiate and increasingly personalize to support all of our learners, the curriculum, our shared practices, and any connections that that may have or any influence that we may have through our policy. In our first year, the district leadership team will launch the professional learning to establish that common language, as you saw in the operational definition in the equity vision statement, that begins to challenge our beliefs and understandings and our practices in the pursuit of equitable academic and social emotional outcomes for all students. Among the areas of concentration in our year one goal include the engagement and cultural proficiency professional development. Our teachers also had an opportunity, and all staff across the district, to meet Dr. Cleese-Wortham for an introduction to cultural proficiency in the opening days of professional learning. That we define equity, as you saw in that initial operational definition, and begin to unpack the three components of equity: diversity, belonging, and inclusion. Disrupt and dismantle inequity in all of its forms. To revise and rethink our curriculum from the perspective of windows and mirrors. Align our policies and protocols to make sure that the influence and intention within them matches the influence and intention we seek to have in our student success. Update student and family handbooks to represent this work and call it out. Listen to and amplify the voices of staff, students, and families in our journey. Allow students to bring their whole selves into the classroom and to find examples of themselves in the examples that are shared in learning. To continue our work with restorative practices as we began with our instructional leadership last year, and to practice revised instructional and behavioral strategies. Pilot strategies within the responsive classroom that can be scaled, and set expectations for what scaled implementation looks like as we advance into year 2 of our work. In our conversations, recognizing that these goals go well beyond 1 year's worth of work, we started to benchmark for ourselves what we would hope to achieve in year 2, provided that we can achieve all that we set out to in year 1. Following with the last of those actions, so much of this is building upon the work that started in year 1 and going deeper, making systemic changes about hiring practices and mentoring strategies, cultivating skills to effectively interact with students. This begins to influence and adjust within the realm of attitudes beyond just knowledge and skills. How we are able to do that with fluency and independence and then model that for our students. How we assess our progress through student and staff feedback. And then in year 3, looking towards data and what we need to do to conduct a needs assessment for further work around this goal, so that we can maintain forward momentum. So that was goal 1. Goal 2 builds off of the work and the signed memorandum of agreement that we have from last year with our partners in the professional community of Woods Hole and the greater town of Falmouth. Our rationale, this is drawn from the preface of the memorandum of agreement. The Falmouth Public Schools and the professionals in the Woods Hole and broader scientific research communities partner to enrich and extend learning within and across disciplines. We recognize that the vision of this work is ambitious and that it brings many different contacts together to bring the work to scale. Through our partnership, Falmouth Public Schools intends to create more hands-on learning opportunities, provided that we are not bound by COVID restrictions, both within our lab investigations in the classroom, as well as by turning Falmouth coastlines and other habitats into our living classrooms. Through shared, focused, and collaborative effort, the partnership aims to increase students' awareness of the range of programs, careers, and continued learning needed to thrive within this community and to engage in the global community. Again, community being a connecting theme among our goals, and for our students to understand their influence on the world around them. The partnership was created to foster the idea of curricular convergence, and that there are interdisciplinary connections that allow us to extend the research and the learning that we have and the skills and dispositions our students learn beyond just one discipline, beyond just science, and understanding how all of the different roles in these communities come together to generate the successes that we see. So the goal statement reads, through sustained engagement with our partners, Falmouth Public Schools will enrich its teaching and learning through hands-on, authentic engagement in living classrooms and the exercise of interdisciplinary learning to achieve our mission to offer world-class learning for all students. This picture was from our spring 2019 first ever visit for Earth Day at the Seacrest. And while we didn't get to have that this spring, like many of the events that we planned for this spring, we are looking to reinstate those when time and circumstance allow, to re-engage our students in those opportunities. But for year one, as we're able, the district leadership team intends to continue quarterly liaison meetings and our biannual forums. And in addition, we're asking our partners to lean into our curricular mapping work and to offer increased professional learning. Among the areas of concentration in this year of our goal is aligning the standards by partner and setting, work that was begun last year and temporarily paused in part during the physical closure of our buildings. We were able to still have our spring forum, but we weren't able, as I said earlier, to realize all of the activities and planned trips that we had. We want to be able to pilot the learning in living classrooms with attention to means of scaling. And some of that work brings us back to, for example, the grade 2 experience at the estuary. We had been planning the day in the village, but anytime that we have a chance to go out into our community, those are examples that we term under the phrase living classrooms. We want to be able to advocate for grant or other sources of funding to support our work. Add the learning partnership specialist and set expectations for what scaled implementation can look like in year 2. So going beyond the year 1 expectation, here's a preview of what we were thinking may happen in years 2 and 3 if we stay on the timeline we're currently on. We would scale the work begun in year 1, and the areas of concentration in year 2 would be around building and maintaining relationships with our partners, cultivating skills to empower teachers to plan and facilitate partnership-sponsored learning, and as we continue to assess our progress, plan for year 3, in which our team, with achievement and growth data, just as we did for year 1, assess our progress, offer additional and targeted professional learning, and look at forward momentum and whether or not this goal would persist beyond that or become part of the fabric of teaching and learning in the Falmouth Public Schools. Goal 3 builds on the work that was done through the reopening plan for the Falmouth Public Schools and bringing us back to engaging with our students in our schools this September and October. The rationale here is taken from the overview in the Reopening Schools Plan, Stronger Together, Reopening the Falmouth Public Schools. Speaks to our need to study the health trends and circumstances in order to be able to flex among the 3 models of in-person learning, hybrid learning, and 100% remote learning. Our rationale, as it's summarized here, comes from the theory of action for safe and visionary learning communities, also published in the Stronger Together Reopening Falmouth Public Schools Plan document. And it looks across structures, blended instruction across the 3 models, the safe learning environment, and enforcing our safety and health measures. Our goal statement is that the Falmouth Public Schools will leverage sound safety protocols, for example, mask wearing, physical distancing of 3 to 6 feet, and routine hand hygiene practices to engage students in dynamic and robust in-person, hybrid, and remote learning. So again, reflective of the 3 models. In the year ahead, the first example that we've called out from the plan is around structures. The Manual for School Operations has been substantially rewritten in response to the unforeseen and unprecedented forced closing of schools in March of 2020. As we've worked to reopen schools, we've aligned decision-making with DESE's guidance on how to revise and rebuild the structures for learning. Among the key structures that were considered were time on learning, models for learning and instructional delivery, supports for learning, and general operations. From the perspective of teaching and learning, Falmouth Public Schools has curated a rich complement of learning tools and resources for our students and families to create routines and maintain a connection to the school community. As a team, members of our instructional leadership determined how to provide age, grade, and content-relevant learning opportunities that include in-home activities, paper-based activities, and online connections. Resources, programming, and materials are intended to support teaching and learning. DESE confirmed in the 2020-2021 school year that we are expected to include a full year of instruction at all grade levels, including all standards and related skills. Our primary intent is to help students remain engaged in their classes through sustained teaching and learning, while simultaneously we are working to help students and families stay connected to school and to advance their social and academic growth. Attendance and grade reporting are expected of all three models, and this is largely sourced from the return to school guidance. And again, the information that's included in our reopening plan. Continued focus on teaching and learning calls out that the return to school and the work of the Office of Student Services focuses on the commitment to ensuring the provision of all special education services to eligible students as articulated in their individualized education programs. That will be in play regardless of the three models. Falmouth Public Schools provides daily instruction services to all special education students identified as high priority, as well as our students who are identified as homeless, being in foster care, or in congregate care. Additionally, all students with 504 accommodation plans will be provided with the accommodations as outlined in their plans across all three models. Special education building administrators and members of the Return to School Education Parent Advisory Subcommittee are working diligently, as they have from the beginning of our plan development, to support all students. Our work largely focuses on our students in specialized programs in order to best meet their unique needs. When we look at the broader learning community, all staff recognize that families are more critical than ever as partners in providing high quality learning, and that was sourced in large part from the feedback this spring and in the questions that we had surrounding how students were doing with accessing their learning and keeping pace, and families were often the ones sharing with us a great deal around the progress and sustained attention to learning that their students had. Together, we'll break down boundaries between school and home, seek to build strong relationships, collaborate with families in innovative ways, and communicate with families in caring, thorough, coordinated, routine, and relevant ways. We recognize that the impact of COVID-19 has had on families and the social emotional wellness of our greater community, as well as our school community, and we are currently focusing on providing increased services and resources for students and staff. With regard to health and safety, student and staff safety is of the highest priority, and returning to school safely will require strict adherence to a comprehensive set of critical health and safety requirements as provided by DESE. These include some of the ones that were previously mentioned around rigorous hygiene and hand washing, use of masks and face coverings, and physical distancing. Also included here is reducing interaction between and among groups, staying at home when sick, and protecting those most vulnerable to the disease. The district has successfully obtained a wide range of PPE distributed to schools, specialized programs, nurses, and specific individuals as needed. Our school nurses have worked in collaboration with our consulting school physician to ensure that our health offices and medical waiting rooms are equipped with the necessary supplies and safety protocols to ensure a safe environment for all of our students and all of our staff. Health and safety continued. We continue to outline our focus on adding custodial substitutes and providing overtime to existing custodial staff to ensure that they are on top of scheduled cleaning routines during the school day across all of our school buildings. The additional staff are able to clean and sanitize high traffic areas throughout the day using a scheduled routine customized to the specific needs of each of our schools. More thorough cleanings take place each evening. We are fortunate to have HVAC systems in our schools that are relatively new and modern. All schools' ventilation systems have met or exceeded ASHRAE standards. Opening windows and running univent fans to improve fresh air circulation in each room is expected. So as we look across these three goals, we recognize that they are indeed ambitious, and we recognize the circumstances in which we are existing. But we also recognize that they each work together across that theme of community and ways in which we can create a network of support for our students and our plan to take action. So I have had the opportunity this evening to summarize the work of our leadership team and present the three district-wide shared or common goals. And thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Sonia.
Thank you.
Do you want to just do
Questions or anything else?
questions?
Okay. And are there any questions overall or specific? Terry, go ahead.
Mine is, you covered so much information. It's not looking for more information. It's just saying, it's so good to be thinking 2 and 3 years down the road. I mean, getting out of this year. So hooray for that.
Yeah. Amen to that. Andrea, go ahead.
I guess I just wanted to add too that looking through these, I was so glad to see that the goals, knowing what we know, hearing what we've heard from teachers, there are not these onerous additional things this year, right? The goal 3 is the plan that we all know that we're working through. That's a big enough chunk. The cultural proficiency piece was so important. I'm glad that that did not go away, knowing what everything else was on the plate. But it looks like that is mainly focusing at the district leadership level to get that started and keep the momentum going. And same with the professional partnership with whole community. So I like that it is something that we can keep moving forward through this year without being such a big piece that it is adding on to everybody's already elevated stress levels.
Any other questions or comments? John?
Yeah, I'm just, Sonia had mentioned the Earth Day event. We're looking forward to having normalcy and returning to that again as well. It was a great day. And then just, it came up as we're going through this that I wanted to thank everyone else's efforts, but also our custodian staff and the efforts that they've been making over this time. And then to kind of flip it a little bit, if I could, with having all of our principals here, thank you for all of your efforts. And I'm fortunate enough to get all of the voicemails from everyone and how you actually are very inspiring with what you're saying, always trying to have people be positive and whatnot. And but is there any way that we as a school committee can help you all? Is there anything you want to do? And I said you all, Kelly.
I know, I love it.
But is there anything that, how we could help with you if you feel anything that comes to mind? Anyone can feel free to respond.
I think the answer is they just want to go to bed. They're done.
Fair enough.
I don't know. No one has anything?
Fair enough.
Or send it along if you do, for sure. Okay, thanks. Thank you so much. Any last questions? All right, thank you. Thanks, Sonia. Thank you. Oh. All right, next on the list is discussing and acting on the carousel of light request for use of space. And so I don't, I can't see the attendees, but if Troy's here, we could promote, but I'll just, in the interest of time, try to move us along. So for the public, and then just as a review for everyone here who's already familiar, the carousel of light's been at Mullen Hall for a few years now, using the corner of the property just on an individual yearly lease, just for that sole purpose, and has been actively pursuing having a long-term use of the other corner of the Mullen Hall property, and to have a permanent structure so that it doesn't, the carousel itself doesn't have to be taken down and put back up every year. So 2 years ago, I've lost track of time, we actually did a site visit. We looked at the plans and started discussions back then. And then also did a little research about the process, and the process for having something like that would involve the school committee taking a vote to declare the property not necessary for school use. And then the second piece of that is that the town meeting has to then vote as well to allow to transfer it from the school to the town. And so, in everything that we have going on, we normally would not have taken this on, I don't think, but there is an item on the town meeting warrant for this November, a couple of weeks from now, to do that second piece, to transfer the use of that corner of the property closest to the pond from the schools to the town so that they could then lease it to the carousel. But in order for that to even happen, we need to take a vote anyway, because it's been hanging out there for a really long time. So I think, did I hit everything? in my, okay. So that brings us to where we are. And the school committee has all the materials with the plot plan and the layout and all the FAQ. So I think if everyone's all right with it, we'll just go to questions and comments, and we can have, and Troy is with us? Great, thanks. In case there are any things.
First?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Don't you have to make a motion first?
Well, I want to be able to do questions because we don't know, you know, there's probably questions related to the materials that we've got. And then we'll get Troy to answer our questions for us, and then we'll deal with it.
I just thought you had to put a motion on the table in order to discuss it.
Not to discuss, to discuss the motion, yes, but since we're not even, I don't think anyone's at the point of being able to make a motion, especially knowing how long the motion is gonna have to be, because I did get it from, oh, I should mention that I did talk with Frank Duffy. Lori and I both talked with him on Friday and had him, because this is so legal, had him draft up a bunch of things for us in case we needed them tonight. So I do have materials at the ready in case we need them. So Leah, you want to start us off?
Sure.
Okay.
So I think probably Troy can answer this question. This is about the town council letter. I'm wondering about this bidding. So if it says the acts public, this is the first paragraph on the back on page 2. It's about once the site is under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen. And then the last sentence says the act's public notice and bidding requirements apply to any disposition of real estate by sale or lease with a value greater than $35,000. And I'm not sure if this is greater than $35,000, but I would think so. Is that right?
I don't know. So Troy, is that a question that you know the answer to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm very happy to be here. And I think you did an excellent job introducing the issue and all of the materials that we provided. So I don't think I need to go into any more detail on that. We conducted an exercise where we looked at the assessed value of the entire parcel, and then through a simple mathematical equation, looked at the value of the 8,100 square feet in question that we're suggesting be leased to the Carousel of Light. And I believe that the total value is far less actually than $35,000. So it will not meet the bidding threshold under Chapter 30B. We've provided that information to the town manager and asked him to ask Trish Favuli, the town assessor, to certify that. Should we move forward, they will make that determination.
Okay, and is that possible that with our hot real estate market right now that could have changed, or?
No, because it's public property typically, and this is just based on my experience in municipal finance, it's unlikely that the value of the property, even with real estate values what they are, will have changed appreciably. Those values are certified every year on January 1st. Remember, this is one large, I think it's about 5.5 acre parcel that the entirety of the school is on.
Yeah, so the reason why I was asking that question is just trying to figure out what that bidding process would look like. But if we don't even have to go there, then I guess that's not even needed. So thank you.
Yeah, we don't anticipate a bidding process. We believe that should we be successful in working with the school committee to get you to release the 8,100 square feet, and we go forward and get the support of town meeting, that we'll be able to enter into negotiations directly with the Board of Selectmen. And on that note, if I might just quickly, one of the things that we will suggest to the selectmen should we move forward so that the interest of the school continue to be at the forefront is that the school committee appoint one of its members to be at the table during those negotiations. So even though they're with the Board of Selectmen, we know that maintaining the interest of the schools are important to the school committee, which is why we suggested the reversion clause, that the property would revert back to the schools if for any reason at any time it ceased to be operating as a carousel.
Thank you.
Other questions for Troy?
Just from a sake of impartiality, I'd like to get Patrick's input on what the value of that land is. I mean, I think
Sure,
it's
just-
interesting that the person that's going to benefit from it is saying whether or not it's, and they're going to fall in that price line. What do you think, Pat? I mean, you're right downtown.
I'm not weighing in on that. I have no expertise in the valuation of town property, whether it's commercial or public sector land. I just would have no guess.
Fair enough.
Okay, because that was one of my challenges I had with it was just in general, if we are, other entities, if we are all of a sudden in the real estate business, that especially other nonprofits may have interest or to bid on if they knew that we were just going to start allocating spots out there. That was one of the dynamics that I had as a question, but I'll turn it over for other folks' questions.
Other questions for Troy?
Hi, Troy. I had asked you before if we had approval from conservation since that property that you're looking at is part of wetland. I haven't heard back from that.
If we did consult with our engineer, if you look at the plan.
I know that you spoke with Mike Porcelli, but I'm thinking of the conservation group in town, like somebody who's not partial.
Yes, I believe that Mike did. So if you look at, that's why I'm saying the most recent plan that we provided to you, which is updated from the previous plan that we provided, we actually adjusted the location, the proposed location of the carousel based on some of the comments from the school committee. But both the 50-foot and the 75-foot setback areas are delineated on that plan. And so we believe, and I know it's not just that the engineer, Mike Porcelli, has provided his opinion, but I know he has had conversations with conservation. So I don't believe that there's any specific permitting requirements, but if there are, obviously we will go through whatever those processes are. But that's why those setbacks have been specifically delineated on the map to show that we've taken a look at that.
And then can I
Yes,
ask something
please.
really quick? So, and then if it does turn out that conservation would prohibit the creation of the structure, that is the whole point of, then, and then render the land useless, basically, for your purpose, that clause would then revert it back to the school committee?
Most certainly, but let me be clear, I don't believe there's any circumstance under which the conservation issues would render the site unusable. I think there may just be some review required by the conservation department, but the larger answer is yes. We heard the concerns of the school committee loud and clear, and that's why we suggested that reversion clause ensure that it will either be used for the carousel of light or it will revert back to school use.
Okay, thanks. I didn't want to jump, but if you could.
No, it's fine. I had, over the years, I've spoken to various teachers and students who had been there. And I'm struggling with the lines of the wetlands after learning fairly recently that teachers used to take students out there to go look at the snapping turtles and their egg laying and their life cycle kind of thing, or not their life cycle, but their habitat, I guess. So I appreciate it. I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out, that through the years, teachers have specifically taken kids out to that area to see the snapping turtles lay their eggs, find the baby or see the babies when the time comes. And it actually became part of curriculum for some teachers through the years.
I'm sorry, Terry.
I rather imagine being part of this overall project, which I'm sorry to say I haven't done my homework on the overall project there. The overall project must have looked at conservation issues as well, right?
You mean the Shivricks Pond Committee? Yes, most certainly. I'm not specifically familiar with their work, but yes, I know that they have.
So this one structure is part of other things that would be considered in conservation ideas, correct?
Yes, of course,
I mean,
yes.
conservation concerns. Okay, thank you.
Leah?
So I'm wondering, Troy, in the seasons where the carousel's not used, what will that look like?
So we think that will all be spelled out, obviously, in the lease, and so it will be part of the negotiations with the town, and really will be somewhat dependent on what requirements they have. What our vision is an enclosed building that will be locked and secured when the carousel is not in use, both to provide protection and security for the carousel, but also obviously to limit any hazards in the area.
Okay, and would that be fenced around to keep the students from there, or?
Really good question. And again, I think we would defer to the town on what we really want to be the best neighbors we can be. And so this is really the first step and a fairly lengthy process that will provide for a tremendous amount of input, and in a public forum, by the way, because ultimately the Board of Selectmen will be the final say. So what we envision, yes, is a fence. Again, you can see on the plan that existing wood fence that sort of delineates the unofficial edge of the playground will remain in place. There is a chain link fence that we would propose to come down, and would be happy to put something else perhaps more attractive up there to go around where the carousel will be. As you know, for the last several years, and when we've operated on the playground, we've had just one of those road barrier fences around there, more to just delineate the edge of where we were operating, more than security. But you know, our vision is, should we move forward, we'll be raising lots of money to build a building that the community can be proud of, and that will, of course, include some sort of fencing, whatever the town decides they want.
And the schools would be involved in that too, because you were talking about how having a school committee member be part of that, of looking at the aesthetics of what that looks like over at Mullen Hall.
Most certainly, 100%. And that's a really good point too. And that's why we had suggested that someone from the schools be part of the process throughout, because I know there've been concerns, or questions raised about the building height and maintaining the vistas. And we want all that to remain. Remember, the folks that have been involved in this project, some for more than 20 years, are all residents of this community, and of course volunteers, but folks that have a stake in the community and credibility at stake. So we really want to be good neighbors and have this continue to be a community effort.
So piggybacking on what you just said, so there were, when we talked about this the first time when we did our site visit, there were a number, and actually Terry and I acted as liaison to the carousel group to talk through and listen to some of the things that they were talking about. So as I mentioned, Lori and I talked with Frank Duffy last week and brought to him the things that came up at that time. So, and actually, asked whether or not our vote can be contingent on some of those things, whether we have the authority to include them in whatever motion we make. Things like the height of the structure or including a fence, those types of things. So Frank was kind enough to prepare that for us for tonight. So we do have, it is allowed, and we do have the language around many of those items that came up that Frank shared with us today. I don't know if that helps, but it seemed like a timely time to mention what I meant when I said I had some language from Mr. Duffy. Did you have something, John?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, we talked about the wildlife dynamic there, and I wanted to know, separate of anybody else bringing it up, if you, Mr. Clarkson, if you had done any research on, how it would impact wildlife, or even more so, the structure of the building, much like when Fenway Park initially put the structure on top of the 600 club, you know, it affected how the breezes would go about having home runs and whatnot. One of the additional concerns I have, including, you know, the distraction of kids and how over the years, the goal of your organization has changed from being, it was just going to be in the summertime and ending specifically at Labor Day, that it kept getting pushed back. Now it's a permanent structure. Have you done any research of what that structure would do for when it's the warm weather of early June and September and the kids are out in the playground, if that big structure is then going to block a nice breeze coming off Shiver's Pond, for example? Had you done any studies on things of that nature?
No, as I mentioned, I mean, we anticipate all those things would be things that we would review and consult with the town on as the process moved forward. So we've really tried to be inclusive in terms of all the decision makers involved from the get-go, and really seek feedback from the school committee, from the town, from the hundreds of families who've supported us over the years. So I anticipate we'll be able to answer all of those questions as we proceed through the process.
Okay, thank you for your answer now.
Any last questions? No.
Just a statement, Troy. When you started this presentation to us, you obviously adjusted your structures over the years to get it a little bit lower, a little bit more modernized, and a little bit more, I think, secure for long-term usage. Is that not a fact? Is that true? Because I remember initially we discussed the height, and you guys worked on adjusting that height to, I think, meet the needs so that would not interfere with the visibility of the school and things of that nature, correct?
100%, absolutely, yes.
And that's, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought we went through that process.
Yeah, like I said, from the get-go, I think we've tried to be, even for the last several years, since 2014, I think, being on the other end of the school property, we've really, I think, tried to be good neighbors. This carousel gets set up and broken down every year for the sole purpose of providing enjoyment for local families and for visitors. And we want to just keep that goodwill going. And that's why we do what we do.
So this does, you know, this is part of the school committee's responsibility, but like lots of things, we, you know, tend to always ask the person that gets to do this all day, every day, to weigh in. Did you have a recommendation for us?
So I would like to say, the kids love the carousel. It's just provides so much joy to watch the kids enjoy riding the carousel, and I would not want to see that not be a part of the lives of our kids, the ongoing opportunities for the students. I would recommend that we work to keep the carousel, and I would recommend that we have the stipulations that over the time that I've been here, that many of the concerns here, that we add those stipulations. I don't think any of them are new. I don't know.
Yeah,
you want me to make the stipulations now?
Yeah,
or?
let me let you know. So these were I'm not going to read the exact language, but you'll get the gist. These were the items that we took to Frank and had him craft language around. So using the property for recreational purposes only, not using it during the hours that Mullen Hall is in session, locating any structure in such a place to preserve and maintain views of the pond, located to preserve existing trees, no alcoholic beverages or smoking, no structure shall be erected on the property until Mullen Hall is open for instruction without any COVID restrictions. So like not dealing with any of this now. The lease requires removal or decommissioning bond to remove any structure and restore the property at the lease end. So to explain that a little bit, that would be like a special money set aside so that in the event it's not operating anymore, it's returned to its original, the building is removed and it would revert back to the school, but we don't want to inherit a building that we don't need. And reverting to the jurisdiction of the school committee, if not used for a period of 2 years, and inclusion of appropriate fencing. I think that's all.
Kelly, you mentioned a lease, so
Yeah.
is that a lease that where money is going to the school system or the town or what?
So the lease would be between, so if we vote to declare that we don't need it for school purposes, then the town meeting would then vote to transfer the use of that space back to the town. And then the select board then enters the lease. So we're not leasing anything. It would be a lease between the select board and the carousel. And whether or not there's money tied to it, I think it would be part of that, having a rep on that committee or whatever, I don't know.
Would Mr. Clarkson know if there was is there a set monetary lease agreement, Mr. Clarkson?
At this point, no, because we haven't negotiated those conditions, but I can tell you as the president of the nonprofit, I will certainly advocate for continuing to provide some donation to the school department as we have every year since 2014 when we've operated.
Okay.
So what in fact is the town committee voting on?
The town meeting?
Town meeting.
I pulled it up just in case anybody asked, because I hadn't read the warrant yet. So it says, oh, hold on, of course I closed the window. Sorry, give me a second.
It's okay.
I know I opened it. Here we go. It says, to see if the town will vote to transfer a parcel of land at the southwesterly corner of Mullen Hall School property near the intersection of Kathy Lee Bates Road and the abandoned portion of Hamlin Ave, which parcel has been declared not needed for school purposes, assuming that we did something here tonight, by vote of the school committee, from the school committee to the select board for municipal purposes, and further that the select board is thereafter authorized to lease that parcel for a defined lease term not to exceed 30 years upon such terms and conditions as it deems appropriate. And that article was placed on the warrant by the select board.
So the town meeting will move it to the select board then by just their approval.
Yeah, if we vote.
Just a
yes.
step then.
Yes, it's just a step, yeah.
And that needs to be a 2/3 vote.
So 2/3 vote,
Yeah,
yes.
it would be. You're right. Look at us with our knowledge of town.
Well, actually in Frank Duffy.
Oh, you're right.
It is, yes, it is.
Not just that we're
No.
so well versed in
I know.
town meetings. Okay. Any oh, sorry, now.
Yeah, there's one more thing.
Yeah.
I think my statement or concern is less about the carousel, more about the precedents. So going forward, are we going to revise a policy or language to sort of to John's point about what is then to prevent another nonprofit from saying, hey, we have the corner of, the high school lot. So going forward, what are we going to do as a board, or something we need to think about the fact that we're now setting a precedence that we are taking a part of our land and giving it to a nonprofit for use. I think that we need to go into that with our eyes wide open and prepared for that. That's just a statement.
All right, Terry?
Well, my intent is to vote for this because it's a special situation that the whole Shivricks Pond area is being built up. So it's part of that overall build-up thing. So it isn't just some random piece of land somewhere. It's also a part of another thing that's going on downtown. So to me, that would be, I don't know if Mr. Duffy would say that's a reasonable, not precedent setting for random pieces of land because there's this other project going on. Just my comment.
Yeah.
I'm not a legal scholar.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking kind of, and this isn't like historically, but in my time at school committee, we did have the senior center, like the senior center piece around our land too. And so we have gone through this process before. And I think it's an important process to go through when a community organization needs land and we have something and it would make sense for our school committee to, or not our school committee, our school system to embrace whatever organization or thing it is on our property. I think that's the precedence that we're setting. I don't worry about this opening for everybody to want to come. It's not an easy process. I mean, Troy has not had an easy process in this, but the carousel has been at the Mullen Hall School since, is it 2014, Troy?
Yes, 2014.
So it would have been the 6th year this year, right?
Yeah, well, 7th actually, yeah.
Okay, so I think, I guess I'm not really concerned about that, just knowing about the process that we've gone through in these years, that it's not like anyone who just comes up to us and says, we need property, but I mean, maybe that might happen.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that just anyone would, but I think that that is something we should consider, like
Yeah.
just have it on the table to consider.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comment about the senior center, because we did actually have something similar when we thought we might be giving a corner of a much bigger corner. And I had actually not thought about that. So thank you for bringing it up. Andrea.
I guess I wanted to follow up with that with Lee, because I've been thinking a lot about this and transfer of property precedent and all of that. And so are we talking about the old senior center property that we just voted on the transfer? Is that what you're?
No, when we thought the new senior center might be built on a portion of land here. That was under the jurisdiction.
Because I was going to say, I felt like that when I was thinking about, this would be the first time that I was being asked to vote on something like this. And that situation was just fixing a technicality.
Right.
From the past, right? The one that we just had done. So what I was really trying to think about are like, what would be criteria for making this decision? And so the things that I had come up with are, whether or not it was for educational or athletic purposes, there was that type of value to who was coming before us. And if the property was actually surplus, if it was unnecessary for the school system, because I wanted to make sure that we could pull the decision away from the party that's before us. Like, it's not about whether we think they're a good organization, if we like what they do, if it makes people happy, like that's all great, but I don't think that we can use that going forward. I like what Natalie was saying about precedent. And so I'm not sure that I could, come to an educational value out of this, this particular ask. And then for the surplus land, it is the land surplus. I feel like one of the things that, if we've learned anything from the situation we're in right now with the pandemic, is that we don't really have a good way of predicting what the future looks like. And I'm thinking about all the additional outdoor classrooms, all the uses and the expansion of school gardens, potential school orchards. So like, we wouldn't have really have thought of those, if we were even looking at this 5 years ago. And so I'm trying to think about going forward, how do we make those decisions? How do we, and I don't think those things that we're doing with the outdoor classrooms are just because of COVID. I think we're seeing a lot of value to all these things, and there's been talk in the newspaper articles and of keeping this and having that go forward. I would hate to just be giving away something that has a real positive impact for our students. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting with it right now, are those two criteria. And if people had other criteria, that was just sort of what I was trying to think through. I'd love to hear other thoughts on that.
Melissa, and then John.
Andrea, you have so eloquently stolen thoughts from my head. I've sort of rattled around. Pre-COVID, I thought many different things, but I feel like we've got some amazing folks in our community who have put together outdoor classrooms, and I would certainly not want to bridle the hard work that they've done to keep our children and staff safe. And I also think in my own personal home, we've altered our outside time. We've altered, we're doing more with our yard, more things that we didn't necessarily do before. You really just hit the nail on the head with the gardens and the use of our space. I'm having a hard time taking away from our schools and our kids in a time that they need everything that we can give them. So these are things that are sort of weighing on me currently.
John.
Well, to echo what Natalie was saying, with regards to what I had said prior to as well, was my concern not only of somebody in the future, saying, well, we would like this property, but my concern also is somebody actually doing a lawsuit against the school committee now saying you didn't put that out to bid of that, and an RFP for that property. And I agree with Andrea and Melissa's point. The New York Times article highlighting the outdoor use and how, I had thought that area could also be sort of like the Heritage Plantation, how they have the that little area there that's like almost like a Smith Family Robinson little area that they have there with the xylophones and things of that nature, which the kids go on a family with a trip, a class trip, and it's been very good. And we only have a certain amount of land, and that's such right downtown that I don't look at it as surplus. And then separate of that, I would really have a tough time, and the reason I voted against it to even be at Mullen Hall the last time a vote came up was the kids at our East Falmouth School Committee meeting that did a presentation about how they have trouble focusing, and how they did we had 3 youngsters come before us and say how they had the little obstacle courses in the morning so they could burn off energy so they could be better, have a better ability to focus on their day. And I just can't think of how that cannot be a distraction to have basically like, the equivalent of Space Mountain or something right next to the kids' school system, the building of the school. And I know when Nantasket Beach, they have their carousel set up. It's on a whole separate area as you're coming in, like the Rotary going into Hull, and different spots. The Flying Horses are in downtown Oak Bluffs. There's no schools abutting right next to it. I just find that as terribly distracting. I think it's a tough position that we put, Laurie in, or what we put Nancy Ashworth in the past of saying, hey, what do you think of it? To sort of pass the buck a little bit of being the bad guy, if you will, of somebody, who wants to vote against the carousel? No one, of course. Carousels are fun. But with that said, we're selfishly motivated to protect the kids going to school, learning, the teachers trying to have the kids focus, and then, hey, can I go on the carousel? Can I go on the carousel? And that's when this Carousel of Light Committee first came forward, they said, no, we're just going to be in the summertime. It's just going to be in the summertime. And just having that physical structure there, I don't know what that's going to do with the wind coming by, but mainly the distraction. So with that said, I'm going to make a motion that we vote against declaring that land surplus for any use.
Is there a second? Okay, that's never happened. So since there was no second on a negative motion, I will make a positive motion, but I have to warn you, it's really long. So I'm actually nervous that I won't get a second. I do feel pretty strongly that we do need to actually take a vote because I feel like, not only does the carousel deserve to know where we sit on this, the public does too. It's been talked about for some time now. And since it's an article in the town meeting warrant, the town meeting members deserve to know what has happened. So, and I didn't really say a whole lot, but I do think that, I think that I understand all the issues with its location and close to school and being a distraction. But I really do think that, to Terry's point, the idea of this creation of the space around the pond and building out, you know, like a new way to enjoy the pond itself with the carousel placed there. I think all of those things are good for town. And what's good for town is good for the school department. So, you know, I'm not just going to make the motion because I have it in front of me, but I do support it. And I like the idea of keeping it. So here, bear with me, sorry. I move the school committee declare the following part of the Mullen Hall School property to be not needed for school purposes. The land of the town of Falmouth shown as proposed lease area, 8,100 plus or minus square feet on a plan entitled Site Plan for number 140 Kathy Lee Bates Road, prepared for Carousel of Light, Inc. in Falmouth, Mass, dated October 26, 2020. Prepared by the Falmouth Engineering, Inc., said proposed lease area containing 81 plus or minus square feet and being more particularly bounded and described as below. Holy smokes. Beginning at a point in the northerly sideline of Kathy Lee Bates Road, a public way, said point being 25 plus or minus feet south, 76 degrees, 10 minutes, 48, oh my gosh, 76 degrees, 10 feet, 48 minutes east from the southernmost point of the abandoned portion of Hamlin Ave shown on the plan entitled Town of Falmouth Abandonment and Relocation of a Portion of Hamlin Avenue, dated November 2001, last revised 9/30 of 2002, which plan is recorded in Barnstable County Registry of Deeds at Plan Book 578, page 3. Thence north 10 degrees, 50 feet, 47 inches east, 78.96 feet. Thence north 14 degrees, 16 feet, 30 inches west, 41 feet. Thence north 76 degrees, 8 feet, 20 inches west, 74.70 feet. I'm not even a third of the way there, folks. Thence south 16 degrees, 10 feet, 33 inches west, 36.17 feet. Then south 13 degrees, 46 feet, 5 minutes west, 13.84 feet. Then south 0 degrees, 42 feet, 57 inches west, 3.37 feet. Then south 75 degrees, 44 feet, 38 inches east, 12.98 feet. Then south 27 degrees, 47 feet, 28 inches east, 38.36 feet. Then south 13 degrees, 49 feet, 12 inches west, 23.04 feet. And then south 76 degrees, 10 feet, 48 inches east by the sideline of Kathleen Lee Bates Road, 49.85 feet to the point of beginning. It's not kind of him to make me read this. And subject to the town meeting approval, said property may be transferred to the select board for municipal purposes, subject to the following conditions. Said property shall be used for recreational purposes only. Said property shall not be used during the hours the Mullen Hall School is in session. Any structure on said property shall be located in such place to preserve and maintain views of Shivert's Pond. Any structure on said property shall be located in such a place to preserve existing trees. There shall be no alcoholic beverages or smoking permitted on said property. No structure shall be erected on said property until the Mullen Hall School is able to open for class instruction without any COVID-19 restrictions. Any lease of said property shall require a removal or decommissioning bond to remove any structure and restore said property at lease end. The include, this one I don't have. Use shall include an appropriate fence. Said property shall revert to the jurisdiction of the school committee if any use is abandoned or not used for a period of 2 years or more. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Leah, you get it. Okay, so let's finish up with any discussion or questions or comments, and then we'll vote on it. Terry?
As John was talking about outdoorness, well, walking around Shiverix Pond with your family and the goal being the carousel on a Sunday afternoon, that's outdoor too. I mean, it isn't just, it's part to, I envision this as part of this pond thing. No, I don't envision it as a structure next to the school. I mean, it's been in our school, so I think if we think of the structureness in our school, but I think moving it over into that developing area over there puts a whole different slant on it, in my opinion, and it is outdoors over there too, so.
Thanks. Melissa?
Terry, you had mentioned that there's a plan around Shiverix Pond. How far, does it go all the way around the pond, or maybe, Mr. Clarkson, do you have some insight? Trying to get like a broader view as to the whole big plan of the Shiverix Pond area.
So I'm only aware of their work on the fringes, really. I am not on the Shiverix Pond Committee. I do believe that they're developing a plan for the entirety around the pond to really, I think, as Terry was discussing, to provide vistas and views and walkability and recreational access. So I know that they're putting together a comprehensive plan that would be compatible with our use. We have actually had discussions with them, but I'm not aware of the scope of their full plan. I think it's still in the developmental stages.
I think if I remember right, it's having a walking path that goes all the way around. And I think 2 like big wooden viewing platforms, you know, like they have on the bike path, that you can, I think fish from, maybe. It sounds right in my brain, if anybody, okay. And I think there's a section to widen the shoulder along, you know, along the pond side, so that there's more space in there for people to actually walk around. And then I think the other piece is the removal of all the invasive like knotweed and stuff. Those are the things I remember. I'm sure it's other stuff, and that's 100%, don't quote me, but I think that's the gist.
Do you know the time frame of that?
Thank you.
I think they already got some money for it
Yeah.
at the last town meeting.
Yeah, that has been approved.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Any last thoughts? Okay, so roll call vote. Terry, you're first.
Yes, on the motion.
Andrea?
Andrea Thorold, no.
John?
John Fenari, no.
Lisa?
Lisa Hart, yes.
Melissa?
Melissa Keith, no.
Natalie?
Natalie Cantalopoulos, no.
Bill?
Yes.
Leah Palmer, yes.
I've actually lost track, and I'm a yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the motion carries. Thanks, Troy, for joining us tonight, and I'm sure we will be in touch, especially because we're going to want to have someone representing the school committee.
Thank you all very much. We look forward
to
to continuing to work with you. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Troy. Okay. Next is approving the minutes from October the 13th.
I have a edit.
Oh, go for it while I'm trying to find the page. Thank you.
It's an edit to all of our front pages of things. Just that it says, actually, I can't find it right now, but.
Administration building?
Yes, that it says
Oh.
administration building, and it should be Falmouth High School.
Yes, thank you. Good
Yeah.
catch.
And it almost led me over to the admin building, our agenda. I looked at your text today and I was like, no, it is at the high school.
Yeah, we can't fit in there.
Yeah, so just
Thank you. That's
should
a good catch, and we need to, yeah, we'll definitely fix that moving forward. So is that on, oh, it's just this one? Okay.
I think it's probably on all of our headings.
We'll double check. Thank you for noticing. Any other, is there a motion to approve the minutes with this one edit?
I make the motion to approve the minutes of October 13th with the one edit.
I'll second it. You guys can fight over it. Is there any other things that we need to fix, or are we good? Okay, roll call vote. Terry?
Yes.
Andrea Gold, yes.
John?
John Fenner, yes.
Lisa?
Lisa Hurt, yes.
Melissa?
Let's keep yes.
Natalie?
Natalie Cantalopoulos, yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Leah?
Homer, yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's unanimous. Thank you for catching the edit. Report from the chair and committee member reports. I don't have anything. Does anybody have any committee member or updates or anything you want?
I
John?
just had a chance to, my last collaborative meeting, I did my Zoom from Waypoint School at the Wing School in Sandwich, and was very impressed with the way that they were doing the sanitizing and whatnot, and how systematic it was. It was at night, and just watching their custodial staff, which made me think of ours as well. And it was just, really neat to see and how it was done. And I think, we should commend everybody on that's doing that stuff, but that's the only thing.
Thank you. Any other reports from committees or anything?
Is this where we have requests, Jim?
Go for it. And this is the catch-all.
Okay.
Whatever you need.
So my request is to reach out to Mashpee Public Schools about this resolution that they have posted for the Wampanoag, acknowledging the Wampanoag's land, and see if there's a way that we could really look at embedding that here in our Falmouth Public Schools.
Sounds good. Thanks. Bill?
Well, just a couple things that caught me through the meeting. The one was Mike Campbell on the Schoology integration coach. And I think he's at the high school. If there's a dollars and cents, and I don't know if there is, I think there probably may be because of grants, and we may as well take full advantage of those at this point in time, because grants are probably not going to be available next year. The reality of it is, it would be nice to have an integration coach, especially in Schoology. Schoology. I'll get that right. Don't say it 3 times fast. At the other schools like Lawrence as well as MP.
So just a correction, he is the integration coach for both schools,
For both
Lawrence
schools.
and high school.
Okay.
Yes. Which are the only 2 schools implementing.
Okay. Okay, I think that's really important. The other thing came up tonight was flu shots. And I think the terminology was we had some 825, 800 plus students total. Is there a possibility that a lot of our kids in the district did not get flu shots yet? And is there a possibility that we could also set up another flu shot day for kids?
So yes, we are looking to set up another clinic. We wanted to wait and see how many families still need the flu shot. We have another option that Scott McGann is looking into. He thinks he'll have additional doses for families without insurance.
Okay.
And he's looking into how many, and can he donate those to the school district so we can be able to reach out to some of our families that doesn't have insurance. But we're also looking to set up another clinic as well, so that we can do that. It is the end of December deadline, so that's why we're trying to stay on top of where we are.
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome.
Terry,
Terry,
sorry, about that flu shot, yeah.
1 second.
How are the students and staff reporting that they've had the flu shot?
I wondered that too, because I didn't send in notification and my kids both got it. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Okay, so we need to send out information because the nurses are collecting information, the nurses at the schools. Because the students are required to have the flu shot, they do have to send in the proof of the flu shot to the nurse so that we have records. So that may be why our numbers are low at 800, because I was kind of concerned about that myself. So we'll get out additional information from that as well. And we'll do it district-wide, but I think maybe doing it school to school from the nurse may be a good way to reach the families. But
So maybe
we'll get
just
that.
a quick answer for any parents that are still listening at this point, that if they have a copy of their
Yes.
flu shot from their pediatrician or their clinic, they could send it in with their person Thursday, because tomorrow was remote Wednesday.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Good question on that one.
Terry, what was yours?
Mine is, I miss the kids, so can we see if we can get our student representative? I mean, I know they kind of come from student government. Maybe we could ask one of the class officers from there's 4 classes and there's 4 class officers. So maybe if we could approach them. I mean, I don't think it has to be through student government, but I miss that. And can we bring back the bowl? I think we need some children's perspectives of things.
Perhaps we could do about that electronically.
Email,
Yeah, I don't know.
What?
Something.
Perhaps we could do it electronically.
Yeah.
You can't, oh, that's right, it's paper.
Yeah.
All right, well,
It's
we'll
not
work
a
it out.
contract.
Yeah,
We
I
gotta
know,
find
it's not from- Exactly.
I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'll research that, how to do it. If you need, I mean, along with some technological person.
There we go. We'll have kids do it in Google form or whatever. Last thoughts? Okay, I make a motion that we move into executive session to comply with or act under the authority or any general or special law or federal grant and aid requires, specifically open meeting law, and the specific purpose is to approve executive session minutes and also for us to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with unit A, B, C, and D. And having these discussions in an open session may be detrimental to the school committee's bargaining position. It's anticipated that the school committee will not return to open session. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Melissa. And it's a roll call. Terry, you're first.
Terry, yes?
Andrea?
Andrea Thorold, yes.
John?
John Fenari, yes.
Lisa?
Lisa Hurt, yes.
Melissa?
Melissa Keith, yes.
Natalie?
Natalie Cantalopoulos, yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Leah?
Leah Palmer, yes.
Kelly's also yes, it's unanimous, and we'll move into executive session.